Welcome everyone back to the NCU, which is my hypothetical Nintendo Cinematic Universe that I thought of. Everyone, since I finished Smash Bros. World of Light and Darkness Part 2, which was posted September this past year, I believe it was September, I've always known since then that there was more that I could do with it, more that I could do with this saga. I don't know how much more I'm thinking of doing, but I've been trying to cook up in my head some things I could do, even if that just means I connect some stories together within the existing saga that I already have. This story is going to be one of them. This is Bayonetta. She was technically introduced in Super Smash Bros. World of Light and Darkness Part 2, which as of right now is the very last movie in this saga, but this movie is going to take place in between Part 1 and 2 of that. And when you guys see the playlist, you'll see that it's adjusted for this movie to fit in between those two movies. This is the first R-rated story in this saga. Yes, this is going to be rated R, and because it's rated R, I thought I should tell you guys why. The two most obvious things being the violence and the language. I believe there are 10 F-bombs being dropped, which probably isn't even too bad, but it's probably enough for YouTube to not want to give me too many ads for this video. And the violence is gonna go hard. I'm just warning you guys right now. Some of these things are gonna be told in graphic detail, so just be ready for that. And for those of you guys who have actually played the Bayonetta games, it's probably pretty clear why. So this story is going to be primarily following the actual Bayonetta 1 story, but if you guys have been following along with these videos for a while, you'll know that I always like to put my own twist on it and make at least a couple or a few major changes that I feel would fit better with the actual story. The two major things I'm changing, alright, is that in the game, the Bayonetta story takes place 20 years after she wakes up after her little coma or whatever. You guys will find out about that in a bit. It takes place 20 years after that. In this movie, it takes place right after she wakes up. There's no 20-year gap. It happens right away, which means, leading to my second major change, that Luca is not really going to be in this story. He's still going to be a child, but there's going to be a character kind of taking his place in this movie. You guys will find out who it is here in a moment. So I hope you guys are cool with that. There's a reason for it, and I'm gonna need you guys to do something for me, alright? And that's to let me cook. So for the characters, we got Bayonetta, Pitt's going to be taking Luca's place, Cereza, Jeanne, Baldur, Jubileus, Rodin, Enzo, Luca, he's still going to be in it, and a character I made up named Malvolado. You guys will find out who that character is here in a moment too. In the setting, we got Vigrid, Noatun, Manhattan, Inferno, which is like hell in this universe, and the Light Realm. I know you guys are thinking, Pitt, as in the angel kid from Kid Icarus? Yes, he is in this story. So everyone, I hope you're ready for this story. Here go the plot points, which will take a while to talk about. So the year is 1692 in Salem, Massachusetts, the beginning of the Salem witch trials. In this universe, the trials begin when a Lumen sage and radicalist from Vigrid cross the seas to the Americas on the hunt for fugitives, the Umbran witches. Several innocent women in Salem have been burned alive at the stake for being accused of being a witch, as they have been convinced by the Lumen sages that Umbran witches walk among them. On a particular day, another poor woman accused of being a witch is tied to a wooden post, knowing what her fate is about to be. Yes, this movie starts off dark. The Lumen sage leading this party, Baldur, approaches the woman wearing a strange golden mask covering the left side of his face, starting a monologue. Baldur introduces himself and pities the woman, telling her he understands that she cannot control who she was born as. The woman cannot process what Baldur is saying, as she is too terrified to do so, and she begs Baldur for her life. Baldur gently tries to calm the woman down and reassure her, and continues his monologue. He starts talking about himself and mentions that because this universe is the closest to the mirror of the Dark Realm, in ancient times the same dark power the gods of darkness used to create Darkin leaked over into this world to spawn the power of the Umbran witches. In response to this, the Light Realm created the Lumen sages to act as the light representatives of this universe in order to keep the balance of light and darkness in check. For those of you guys who watched Smash Bros. World of Light and Darkness Part 1, this will sound familiar to you. Needing a strong foundation to hold this power on both sides, the god of chaos Aesir created the two eyes of the world, each representing light and darkness, for the Umbran witches and Lumen sages to hold. He says that long ago, with some adjustments since the ancient times, the Lumen sages and Umbran witches coexisted peacefully, helping control the balance of this world until eventually a Lumen sage and Umbran witch severed the shared alliance by falling in love and bearing a child together, upsetting the balance of this universe. Baldur reveals it was him who fell in love with this Umbran witch. The woman is stunned to hear this. Anyone would be. Baldur says that because the Umbran witches are from darkness and the Lumen sages are from light, each respective afterlife awaits them when they die. The Lumen sages will ascend to Paradiso, which is heaven in this universe, and the Umbran witches will descend to Inferno, which is hell in this universe. Growing sad, Baldur tells the woman that upon meeting this witch he fell in love with, he could no longer accept the fact that each clan would inevitably be separated in the afterlife, and that all witches would go to hell when they die. That's when he became obsessed with Jubileus, the creator. A sentient and celestial being, he says that Jubileus is able to harness the power of both light and darkness, as well as the eyes of the world created by the god of chaos Aesir, and was imprisoned by both realms, light and dark realm, after the first Armageddon, due to drawing DeLisle and Dark into this world, with her shared power of light and darkness when they waged their century-long battle. If you guys remember the story that Pitt told the Super Smash Bros. In the previous installment, World of Light and Darkness Part 1, the story of DeLisle and Darkin's battle, the first place they waged battle was Bayonetta's universe many millennia ago. That was the world, at least initially. He eventually reveals that before he could finish his research on Jubileus, his wife, a witch, was murdered in front of him as part of the Umbran witch hunts that began 100 years ago after the birth of his daughter. That's when he realized that no matter how much he believed, the fate of the Umbran witches could not be avoided and there is no salvation for the witches. At least, until Jubileus returns. The woman comprehended none of that and continues pleading with Baldur that she isn't a witch. Baldur at this point ignores her and gets closer to the woman as the city folk are preparing the torches to burn the stake. Baldur whispers to the woman, telling her that Jubileus has the power to change everything, and with that power he will become the god of this world. The city folk light up the stake and it rapidly catches fire, steadily engulfing the woman in flames. The woman begins screaming in pain and terror as her body starts incinerating. Baldur stares at the woman, telling her not to be scared as nothing ever awaits the wicked except the vengeful fury of hellfire. Spit everywhere. But he tells her not to worry. When the time is right, she'll be able to enact her own vengeance against the ones who persecuted her. The scene fades to Vigrid, to a fallen clock tower where two tall women are standing, ready to fight intimidating-looking angels from Paradiso rapidly descending from the heavens with murderous intent. A lot's happening right now. I understand if you're a little confused. The first woman is a woman in tight red leather clothes with short white hair, and the other one wears all black with long black red hair and glasses. They get out their dark-powered pistols among other weapons like attached machine guns to their ankle armor. The white-haired woman asks the black-haired woman if she's ready, and the black-haired woman sighs, replying, "Yep, even if it's the 5th time this week." A battle begins with the women and the angels who've ambushed them on the fallen clock tower, and both women begin summoning demons from Inferno and using their weapons to rip apart the angels. The women work very well together. It's clear they've coordinated with each other for a long time. And the white-haired woman's name is eventually revealed as Jeanne when the black-haired woman tells her to look out. Jeanne catches and pins the angels that ambushed her to the ground and blows its brains out with her weapons. The battle continues and the angel's blood keeps piling up on the clock tower when it's cut off by the black-haired woman suddenly waking up in the middle of a lake. The woman is barely conscious and has ringing in her ears, hearing a faint yell from a man crying out that this woman is still alive. All of a sudden, the woman feels her body being lifted out of the water. She thinks it's the man who's carrying her, but still, barely conscious, she realizes that she and the man are both levitating above the water and facing each other. The man is seen in diving gear, and the woman sees the coffin floating in the water, and both the man and his 6-year-old son revealed at the shore of the lake are freaking out due to clear paranormal forces at work. The woman is still very much out of it, and the man in diving gear begins screaming out in pain, feeling his limbs about to be ripped from his body. Eventually, they get torn off and his limp body falls back into the water, sinking to the bottom. The woman starts to come around again, not seeing what happened, and only hearing the faint distant cries of the man's son calling out to his father. The woman's body eventually falls back into the water and she passes out again, having a dream. The dream is about herself as a baby looking up at her parents, with a younger Baldur without his golden mask, revealed as her father smiling down at her, and her mother being draped in dark clothing. Her mother appears worried, knowing that what she and Baldur did was wrong, and asks what will happen if they come for her. Baldur has a kind demeanor, and tells her that he will protect both of them with everything he has, calling his wife Rosa. They take another moment to look at their daughter, and Baldur speaks up again, mentioning that though the sages think that this child is an abomination, mention, with time they will realize that this child could mark a new beginning for the alliance of the sages and witches. Rosa mentions the upsetting balance of the universe with their child's birth, and is worried that with both the light realm and dark realm involved, they will hunt her relentlessly. Balder assures her that they will do no such thing, and that the universe will make room for their child, even if he has to force it to. The woman comes back around as the same looking kind of angels pick her up out of the water. She still fades in and out as the angels fly away from the lake, but she starts remembering her fight with Jeanne against the angels on the clock tower. Out of instinct, the woman reaches her hand into a dark portal she summoned and takes out an ancient dagger. She slashes the dagger, severing the leg of one of the angels carrying her, and she jams the dagger through the skull of the lead angel carrying her. The woman plummets back down to the ground, and seething with pain, the surviving angel without its leg dive bombs after her. The woman uses the dead angel to break her fall, and the other angel lands. The woman at this point is gaining full consciousness and sees the rage in the angel's eyes, with blood leaking out of where its leg used to be. The angel begins slowly hopping on one leg towards her, barely flapping its wings, and demands that with her being awake, her assistance is now required with the revival of Jubileus. The woman promptly summons a dark portal where the demon, Gomorrah, stretches out its head and immediately eats the angel. The woman sends Gomorrah back through the portal as she continues to collect herself, saying to at least let her wake up first. The scene cuts to the woman wandering aimlessly through Manhattan, New York. The people walking amongst this 6-foot woman are bewildered by her demeanor and appearance, especially her somewhat erotic outfit and confused expression, seeing a promotional piece for the Matrix movies showing off Neo, Morpheus, and Trinity. I can't remember if I said this already, but this movie does take place 20 years before the actual events of the regular NCU timeline. She shifts her attention to a particular bar on the block she's walking on, telling herself she could use a drink. Cut back to the lake, an ironic transition where the man's severed arms and legs are floating in the water with the man's torso nearby. A light portal opens up near the shore of the lake and Pitt steps out, making his entrance and observing his surroundings. He eventually hears the cries of a nearby child and checks it out. The body parts of the man float closer to the boy, still mourning his father. Pitt sees the kid and quickly flies over to him as a small platoon of Palutena soldiers, centurions, step out of the portal. Pitt kneels down and grasps the kid's shoulders, asking him what's wrong. The kid continues crying, muttering that he's dead. Pitt listens intently, asking who. The kid points to the water in front of him where his father's severed body parts make it to shore. Pitt is horrified at the sight and promptly picks up the boy to fly him out of the lake. The centurions ask where Pitt's going, and Pitt yells back there's a kid here, and he'll be right back. As Pitt flies the boy out of there, he tells the boy he should not be seeing that. Pitt then thinks to himself, telling himself that he shouldn't be seeing that, referring to himself. Pitt asks for the boy's name, and the boy responds with Luca. The woman walks into the bar, and it's revealed to be a rather dark room with a dim purple lighting. The bartender is cleaning a glass and notices the woman's odd appearance. He decides to mess with her and tell her that the strip club is 3 blocks from here, introducing himself as Rodin and this bar as the Gates of Hell. The woman says it sure seems like it. He likes her attitude, asking what he can get her. The woman sighs and tells him she might need a refresher on some drinks, as it seems a lot has changed. Rodin decides for her, giving her a drink called the Witch's Kiss, telling her it's on the house. The woman clarifies which, huh? And Rodin tells the woman he's pretty sure he knows what kind of person he's talking to, and it has something to do with the old freaky women that went extinct centuries ago. The woman looks startled for a second, clarifying centuries? Rodin asks for her name and the woman thinks for a second, glancing at a poster listing a special kind of weapons, with bayonets being at the top. She comes up with a name real quick saying, Bayonetta. Rodin chuckles, saying, alright, Bayonetta, saying that's what he's going to call her since he damn well knows she didn't forget her own name. Bayonetta smiles, saying Bayonetta will do. Rodin tells Bayonetta it's never a good idea to lie to your bartender, unless she really is the forgetful type. Bayonetta mentions that she has been pretty foggy on some things since she woke up yesterday, though she ran into some angels that mentioned Jubileus. Rodin clarifies Jubileus, asking if that's the same Jubileus the news wouldn't shut up about all day. Rodin unmutes the TV, where a news segment runs about the anticipation for the arrival of Jubileus. The news guy at the scene mentions Balder, CEO of the international Ithaval Group company founded in Vigrid, and Balder begins speaking to the crowd. Bayonetta sees Balder on the TV and immediately gets a flashback of a younger Balder once again in her memories. The news guy continues talking about Balder, saying that rumors fly around that with how long Balder has been around, as well as his connection to Vigrid, that he could potentially be the last of the ancient Lumen sages. Balder tells the crowd that revival is near. The left and right eyes of the world are at work, and with the coming revival of Jubileus, the world will be reborn as Paradiso on Earth, saying that all will prosper in this new world. The crowd cheers, and Baldur shifts his tone, saying that since the news of the eyes of the world being active once again broke, several of his followers have committed suicide since they could wait no longer for this paradise. This is a reference to the animated Bayonetta movie. He wants to spread this message to the world that for anyone anticipating the revival of Jubileus, hold on just a bit longer. Paradise will reward you greatly for it. The eyes of the world must come together, but until then, he'll be waiting. Baldur looks directly into the camera lens pointing at him as Bayonetta gazes at the TV, as if Baldur is looking directly at Bayonetta. Bayonetta freezes for a second, but then collects herself as the news adjusts to a different segment and Rodin mutes the TV again. Rodin looks back at Bayonetta and asks her if that guy rings a bell to her. Bayonetta says she doesn't remember her past since she woke up, but she has to find out, telling Rodin she thinks that guy on TV is the key to finding that out. Rodin says she better be careful about that, and that this Baldur guy seems pretty dangerous, considering the fact that combining the afterlives with this world is clearly not the best idea. Bayonetta says she thought Baldur says Paradiso would just be merged with the world. Rodin chuckles and says Bayonetta really needs to freshen up her memory because Jubileus doesn't work like that, and Jubileus would merge all the realms together, including Inferno. Baldur just didn't feel the need to mention that part on TV. Bayonetta asks where she can find Baldur, and Rodin says he's not an easy man to reach, and that no one really knows where that man operates, but something tells him that Baldur might make an exception for her, if that really is the left eye casually sitting in her pocket. Bayonetta looks down at her pocket and realizes she has a peculiar red stone in her pocket. She takes it out and examines it, and the stone gives off a sinister vibe. Bayonetta gets another flashback to the stone sitting within the sacred altar of the Umbran Witch village within Vigrid, which is in Europe. The Umbran Witches surround the left eye, rejoicing. The Elder Witch begins speaking and initiates a ritual. She starts a monologue saying, "The left eye, born from the gods as the universe's object of darkness, and the ultimate power rivaling nothing less than the right eye of light, the object of light of this universe, that connects to the subspace particles themselves." Bayonetta stands off to the side, implying that she is an outcast among the Umbran Witches. Jeanne is a part of the ritual, but she looks back at Bayonetta, smiling. The Elder Witch continues, bringing up the left eye's connection to Queen Sheba, the Queen of Inferno. The witches summon black smoke from the ritual to project an image of Queen Sheba. Bayonetta is in awe while looking at this image of Queen Sheba. The scene shifts back to Baldur after he just finished his speech. He goes backstage where a large angel of Paradiso, invisible to the human eye, awaits him. Should mention this right now. Another difference that I'm making from this movie to the game is in the games, ordinary people cannot see Lumen Sages or Umbran Witches, but in this movie, you can. Baldur casually greets him as Fortitudo. Fortitudo asks Baldur if it's really true, if the eyes of the world really have awakened. Baldur says it is true. He knows this because he's kept a close watch on the right eye for 500 years since that day, and it just recently became active again. Fortitudo asks Baldur what he knows about the left eye, and Baldur answers that his daughter has it, and that it's been sealed away with her since the witch hunts. Since the left eye and right eye are connected and the right eye awoke, the left eye has done so as well as his daughter. Fortitudo asks how he will find the left eye, and Baldur explains that she will come to him. If she's anything like his associate, she will not remember a thing since she awoke, but he will be there to explain just how much she means to him and what her purpose will be. Fortitudo says that the angels are already looking for her, and Baldur confirms it, saying that some of them follow their cause and wish to bring her to him, but others still mean to hunt her down as they still think the witch hunts are still going. Fortitudo asks if Baldur is concerned they might kill her, acknowledging their overall lack of control over the angels. And Baldur says no, saying that his daughter won't care about which ones are there for whatever reason. She'll kill every last one of them. Fortitudo asks how he's so sure, and Baldur responds because she is his daughter. Bayonetta waits back up in Rodin's bar. Rodin asks if she's good and that she blacked out for a minute there. Bayonetta collects herself, saying she is a witch, although asking herself why she has the left eye. Bayonetta tells Rodin she'll need to find her answers out there, but Rodin says not without protection she's not. Rodin gets out a briefcase and opens it, revealing the case full of demonic weapons. Bayonetta is impressed with the collection, and Rodin says he's spent his fair share of time with both angels and demons, and that both kinds are assholes. Adding on to that, Rodin tells Bayonetta a long time ago when he was in Inferno, Baldur himself went there to recruit demons for his army. Bayonetta clarifies Baldur is a sage of light, and Rodin says that didn't matter to him anymore. Bayonetta asks why Baldur would need an army, and Rodin laughs, saying it'd be for folks like them who don't don't like the idea of demons and angels walking amongst them in one shared realm. Bayonetta says then she'll take on that army, then sarcastically says, with 2 fucking pistols. Rodin matches her sarcasm by saying, oh, stop complaining, saying he's sure she still has some old toys locked in hell somewhere in her old witch days. Bayonetta takes out the 2 rapid-fire pistols, recalling the weapons she used to have, and puts on the same kind of ankle armor with attached mini machine guns. Bayonetta mentions that these are Umbran witch weapons, and Baldur says he's glad she thinks so, considering these weapons that he deals take a lot of inspiration from those lovely ladies. Bayonetta asks Rodin where he thinks she should start, and Rodin says she might start with finding that right eye, and that his friend over there might know where it is. Rodin calls out to Enzo, telling him to wake his ass up. Enzo jumps awake with a drink in his hand, cursing out loud with a heavy New York accent. Rodin tells Bayonetta that Enzo's a guy who owes him a lot of money, but he's willing to let Bayonetta have one of these favors from him. Bayonetta walks over to Enzo and towers over him as Enzo still collects himself, caught off guard by Bayonetta's intimidating smile and demeanor and an intense beauty. Bayonetta greets him sweetly, saying she hears he knows where the right eye of the world is. Enzo stammers, saying he doesn't hear nothing but some rumors floating around, but he hears that the right eye is somewhere in Vigrid, the place where the Lumen sages and Umbran witches used to live. Bayonetta says that works for her, and on her way out of the bar, she rubs Enzo's head as if he's a pet, and she thanks them for their help. Pitt eventually flies the boy, Luca, all the way back to his house and apologizes about his father, asking Luca if he knows who did this. Luca still needs a second to process all this, and Pitt thinks for a moment, asking if the killer happened to be a tall woman with long black hair and glasses. Luca thinks for a second and nods yes. Pitt hugs Luca again with a stern look on his face, asking himself what she has done. Luca shows Pitt around their house, making it to his dad's office, where countless amounts of data on the Umbran witches and Lumen sages is cluttered around. As Pitt examines the office, Pitt squints at a picture of a Lumen sage and Umbran witch holding their infant child. Pitt gets a good look at the sage resembling Baldur. Luca says that his dad was a journalist who devoted his life to his research, and wanted to know everything about the Umbran witches and Lumen sages, as well as the eyes of the world. Pitt sees a nameplate with the name Antonio Redgrave on it, and Luca continues, saying that most people nowadays don't even believe the sages and witches ever existed, and that they're nothing more than myths. But his father truly believed that they did exist, and that both the clans and eyes existed in Vigrid, Europe. He wanted to know more about Baldur, the last of the Lumen sages and the father of the sage-witch hybrid, as well as Baldur's past and the integrity of his beliefs on Jubileus. Pitt asks how they ended up at the lake, and Luca responds that while his father was doing a story on the Ithaval group, he got a tip that the left eye was sealed with the Lumen Umbran witch hybrid, that it was somewhere here in Manhattan. It took a while for him to look for it, but he eventually found it at the lake, where he could feel the evil presence of it, and that's where Luca stops to tear up again, and Pitt understands what's going on, saying that he's familiar with the right eye, and that it's the object of light for this universe, and that the left eye is the opposing counterpart of the darkness to help keep the balance. He looks up at a large map taking up the largest amount of space on Antonio's billboard, and Vigrid, Europe, is circled, with the note right eye rumored to be here. Pitt sees that Vigrid is a rather small city that branches off from a larger city, Noatun, displaying its wonder of the world Fimbulventur, also known as the Holy Mountain and said to be the original domain of Aesir due to its rumored connection to the Trinity of Realities. Pitt finds this out by reading other documents posted next to it, and he understands. Pitt says since she most likely has the left eye, she has to be looking for the other eye in Vigrid. Pitt gets down to eye level with Luca and promises him he will see this through and find the answers that Luca is looking for, Pitt taking Luca's place in this story. Pitt speeds through the skies as the Centurions who came with him meet up with him in the skies above Manhattan. The Centurions ask Pitt what's going on, and Pitt orders them to request a light portal back to their position, and that he's staying here a bit longer. The Centurions ask why, and Pitt says the witch is looking for the eyes of the world in Vigrid, and that he has to get there before her, telling them to report this back to the council. The Centurions plead with Pitt, telling him their mission was not to engage her, but Pitt says there's no time, telling the Centurions to go now. A light portal opens up for the Centurions, and Pete speeds off through the skies. A train speeds through on a track leading to snowy mountains, and Bayonetta sits by herself on one of the carts, looking bored. She gets out the left eye again, trying to remember more of her past. She gets a brief glimpse into the past of her friend Jeanne, but snaps back to reality before she can remember more. She looks out the window and sees what appears to be a projected image of Jeanne riding a motorcycle on top of an Umbran ritual circle in midair next to Bayonetta's train car. Bayonetta rubs her eyes but still sees Jeanne there, with Jeanne getting one of her guns out. Bayonetta then realizes it's not a hologram and ducks out of instinct as Jeanne opens fire into the train car. Bayonetta avoids the gunshots and fires back at Jeanne, with both witches summoning demons to attack each other. Jeanne crashes into the train car and the two of them burst through the roof of the moving train as they fight. Bayonetta gets a good look at Jeanne, saying she's seen her before. Jeanne laughs and says, "Of course she has, dear friend." Bayonetta suddenly gets another flashback to the past, where a ceremony is being held for Jeanne, who is receiving the honor of leading the Umbran witches as Heiress. The Elder Witch tells Jeanne that by Umbran witch decree, she may choose her opponent to fight to prove her worthiness of supreme leadership. Jeanne smiles and looks back through the crowd, seeing Bayonetta at the back, saying she wishes to fight the outcast. Everyone turns their attention to Bayonetta, and the Elder Witch forbids it, saying her blood is impure, being tainted by traces of lumen sage. Jeanne snaps at the Elder, saying that it doesn't matter since the Umbran witches took her in, and that by doing so, the outcast became one of them, whether the Elder likes it or not. Bayonetta is stunned by Jeanne's boldness, and Jeanne smiles back at Bayonetta, telling her to step forth, dear friend. Returning to the top of the train car, Bayonetta processes Jeanne's challenge from 500 years ago, as if she just heard it for the first time. Jeanne asks what the people are calling her this time, and Bayonetta responds with Bayonetta. Jeanne laughs and tells Bayonetta her memory's clearly not intact, but it's understandable as Jeanne herself went through the same thing. Bayonetta says Jeanne clearly has some answers, and Jeanne says she'll beat them into her. The two have a battle on top of the train, mirroring their battle from when Jeanne challenged Bayonetta 500 years ago, and Bayonetta gets flashes of these memories during the fight. When Jeanne gets the upper hand in the fight, that's when Bayonetta sees a memory of the end of the fight, where an explosion obliterates the sidewall of the secret Umbran temple, revealing numerous lumen sages leading an army of Paradiso angels. The leading angel, Fortitudo, declares that the left eye of darkness has built up sufficient power for the revival of Jubileus, and with the abomination that the Umbran witches helped create, their existence is no longer required. Before an all-out war ensues with the sages and witches, the Elder Witch demands to know what the meaning of this is. Battle and bloodshed begins as flashes show the Umbran witches and lumen sages brutally killing each other. The full memory isn't shown, it's only shown in flashes as Jeanne quite literally punches these memories into Bayonetta as she's pinned down on top of the train. It cuts to Bayonetta on the ground, weakened, as Jeanne walks up to her. Jeanne stares down at Bayonetta as Baldur approaches as well, telling Jeanne, his associate, well done for leading the sages here. Bayonetta, listening on the ground, can barely make out what they're saying, but catches Baldur saying that because of Jeanne's cooperation, he will ensure Jeanne's life is spared. The memory flashes again, skipping through Jeanne and Baldur's conversation, with Baldur telling Jeanne that as long as his daughter is safe, he is okay with delaying Jubileus' revival until she's ready. Remember, it was cut through the conversation, so there are elements in there that the audience missed. Bayonetta looks to the side to see a bloodbath of Umbran witches, lumen sages, and angels alike. Jeanne and Baldur's conversation is interrupted by the Elder Witch crawling towards them with a gouged out eye, on the verge of dying and demanding Jeanne tell her why she betrayed the witches. Baldur tells Jeanne to take care of it. Then he walks over to the Elder Witch. The Elder Witch then confronts Baldur, saying that he loved Rosa and asking how he could do this to her people. Baldur picks up the Elder by the neck, hoists her in the air, and tells her to not be ridiculous. He tells the Elder he only ever loved Rosa, and that he never felt a thing towards the other witches. He then decapitates the Elder with his blade. Bayonetta looks back up at Jeanne, who strangely looks down at her with conviction. Jeanne tells Bayonetta she's going to put an ancient Hylian curse on her, a curse that the Umbran witches learned from the reaches of the multiverse. Jeanne reaches her hand out at Bayonetta and tells Bayonetta, if you were to wake up from your slumber, I would as well. This is the same curse that Link first put on Ganondorf in the very first Legend of Zelda movie. Barely able to speak, Bayonetta begs Jeanne not to do this. Bayonetta snaps back into reality again, filled with rage as her eyes turn glowing red, like all red, which is kind of a difference from the games. She forces Jeanne off of her and hits her with enough force to send her flying into the air before she quickly summons a portal for Gamora's huge demonic hand to come out, catch her in midair, and slam Jeanne's body into the train with such force, Jeanne crashes right back to where Bayonetta's train car was. Bayonetta now has Jeanne pinned down and screams in Jeanne's face in a distorted demonic voice, saying Jeanne was the one who did this to her. Jeanne laughs, asking if knowing Bayonetta's past is really that important to her. Bayonetta Bayonetta pants and the red in her eyes disappears, and Jeanne says if it is, then keep following her. Everything seems to stop for a split second, where Jeanne seemingly breathes quietly while moving her mouth to form different sounds, as if she's trying to speak. Bayonetta notices what Jeanne did, but can't make out what she was trying to say. In the blink of an eye, Jeanne swiftly escapes Bayonetta's grasp and catches her motorcycle, driving by itself on the ritualistic circle outside the train. After Jeanne disappears, Bayonetta says that Jeanne was her friend. After a second, the conductor on the train says that due to the disturbance on the train, they're going to be evacuating passengers at the next stop. Bayonetta groans and says that they don't want to make this easy for her. Cuts to Bayonetta sitting at the train stop waiting for the next train. Eventually, she hears a distant, excited yell from a little girl saying, "Mommy!" Bayonetta gets a feeling that was meant for her and freezes, slowly turning to the right to see a little girl with black hair, glasses, and a stuffed cat sprinting towards her. The girl eventually reaches Bayonetta and throws her arms around her, saying she finally found her, Mummy. Bayonetta tries to calm the child down and assure her that she is not her mummy and that she's clearly being confused with someone else. Bayonetta then gets a clear look at her face, seeing that this child does resemble her quite a bit, even wearing the same kind of glasses and black hair. Bayonetta asks the little one what her name is, and the child responds, Cereza, laughing and saying her own mummy should know that. Bayonetta then sternly tells Cereza to stop calling her that, repeating herself that she's not her mummy, while trying to be as discreet as possible as to avoid attention. Some bystanders are overhearing them and are very confused. Bayonetta attempts to explain herself, but when a crowd starts joining in and starts barraging her with questions, Bayonetta snaps, having the glowing red eyes and demonic voice telling all of them to fuck off. Everyone panics and runs away in an instant, but Cereza is unfazed. Bayonetta is confused and asks if Cereza was scared by that. Cereza says of course not, and that she could never be scared of her mummy. Bayonetta sighs, giving up on trying to convince this child she's not her mother, and she asks where she even came from. Cereza happily tells Bayonetta that her daddy dropped her off here at the station to meet up with her. He wants their family to meet up again and have a family reunion. Bayonetta processes that and sarcastically, well that's lovely, asking Cereza if she's ever been to Vigrid. Baldur stands in a large office space in an unknown building, looking outside the window in the bright of day. Fortitudo enters the room, upset at Baldur and accusing him of delaying the revival of Jubileus. Baldur tells Fortitudo to be patient, that Baldur himself has been waiting over 500 years for this. Fortitudo continues his rant at Baldur, telling him that if the eyes are not united soon, then they could risk their power diminishing again. Fortitudo is cut off when he gets startled by Jeanne lounging in a corner of his office, then demands to know why Baldur is still working with this witch. Baldur tells Fortitudo he must remember the revival of Jubileus would be beneficial to the Umbran witches as well, and that there is no reason for the sages and witches to persecute each other anymore, and that this continued discrimination is pointless. Baldur then turns around with his eyes wide open, facing Fortitudo, telling him besides, if he were to still have hate towards the witches, that would mean he would still have hate towards his daughter. Fortitudo grows fearful as Baldur continues staring into his soul as he approaches him. Baldur calmly asks Fortitudo if he still has hate towards his daughter, the one who has the most important role in all of this. Fortitudo can see the malice and murderous intent in Baldur's bright eyes and says of course not, but asks Baldur how he expects his daughter to make it here without her memories and why Baldur wouldn't just go to her again like he did last time. Baldur tells Fortitudo and Jeanne together that Jeanne was the reason they were able to find his daughter and track her progression, and that part of the balance of the universe is that each eye must make attempts to meet up together, not just one eye constantly trying to reach the other. Baldur opens up his hands, revealing the right eye, a bright blue stone that closely resembles the subspace particles. Baldur smiles and asks Jeanne to say what she called herself again, and Jeanne says the name Bayonetta. Baldur concludes, saying that Bayonetta will be searching for answers, and he will reward her with them when she finds him. In the Light Realm, the Centurions return from Bayonetta's universe to quickly report their findings to the council leading their mission. They make it, but find out there's not a session going on in the main hall. Only an unrevealed Light representative is there, looking through a holographic map revealing the locations of numerous universes and going through it. The Centurions call out to the Light representative, Zanza, ready to give their report on the mission. Zanza reveals himself by turning around slowly, giving off an unsettling vibe. The platoon of Centurions kneel down to Zanza, saying they have returned from their mission and must make an urgent report. Zanza notices the missing person from their party and asks where Pitt is. The leading Centurion tells Zanza that he sent them back and that he's following the witch to a place called Vigrid, where he thinks the object of light is. Zanza glares at them, telling the Centurions he thought he made this mission clear. They were to find out information about the witch and report back here. It was recon only. They were strictly ordered to not engage. The leading Centurion speaks up again, telling Zanza they don't know what happened with Pitt since they got here, but there was serious conviction in his eyes before he ordered them back here. He seemed to be sure that something something was going to happen very soon in that universe that he had to stop, and frankly, they believe in Pitt. Zanza says not anymore they don't. They are to go back to the witch's universe, find Pitt, and finish their mission now! The Centurions frantically fly back, and Zanza opens a light portal for them to return to Bayonetta's universe. The Noatun airport is shown, and Bayonetta and Cereza get off the plane. They wander through the city of Noatun and see the mountain Fimbulventer and the horizon. As they walk, Cereza takes out a cat doll from her pocket. Bayonetta asks what that little one's name is, and Cereza says its name is Cheshire, and that she gets him out whenever she's scared. Bayonetta chuckles and says there's no reason to be scared, and that she's right here. They eventually see a sign describing Fimbulventer as the original domain of the god of chaos, Aesir, as well as the doorway to the Trinity of Realities. Bayonetta is impressed, mentioning that that place can lead to hell, and that's definitely going on her bucket list. All of a sudden, towards the base of the mountain, Bayonetta sees a light portal open up and some angel-like people come out of it. Bayonetta says, more angels, asking how these shitheads keep finding her. Bayonetta and Cereza make it to the base of the mountain and hide behind a large boulder. Bayonetta peeks around it to find the platoon of Centurions that just emerged from the light portal. Bayonetta chuckles evilly and tells Cereza she's been trying to figure out her own memories lately, but she eventually figured out that the demons she can summon have pacts with the Umbran witches. Cereza asks what that means, and Bayonetta tells her that in exchange for the demons helping kill their enemies, the witches will kill angels for them. Bayonetta summons a dark portal and pulls out a bloody spear of darkness. Pitt is still seen flying through the skies as he seemingly makes it to Noatun. In the distance below him, Pitt can see that his Centurion platoon has returned, standing around at the base of the mountain. Pitt is confused why they're back, but he can also see Bayonetta about to charge at the Centurions. Pitt then picks up his speed, dive bombing towards the Centurions and trying to warn them of the witch. Bayonetta, with a wide smile and red eyes, keeps charging at the Centurions when they finally see her sprinting towards them with murderous intent. Bayonetta summons demonic butterfly wings on her back as it picks up her speed. The Centurions scream in terror and attempt to defend themselves when Bayonetta gets ready to drive down the spear on them to kill them. All of a sudden, the spear clashes with a double-edged blade, just in time to save them. Bayonetta is confused and gets rid of the red in her eyes and looks over at Pitt, staring at her as he strains against Bayonetta's strength. Struggling to push back against Bayonetta, Pitt yells at the Centurions to get out of here. The Centurions plead that they're not leaving Pitt, but Pitt yells at them again to just go. The Centurions tell Pitt Zanza's ordered them to come back, and Pitt, not thinking, tells them he's not done here and orders them to leave. The Centurions hesitantly leave back through another light portal. Frustrated, Bayonetta mentions that there goes lunch for the boys. Pitt takes this moment of Bayonetta being distracted to break free from the clash and knock Bayonetta back with an immense push of air from a powerful flap from his angelic wings. Bayonetta looks back up, seeing Pitt split apart his double-edged blade and twirl them around, getting into a battle stance against Bayonetta. Bayonetta summons the butterfly wings on her back again to stand up faster, getting a good look at Pitt and telling him that he is a little less ugly than the usual angels she deals with. Pitt continues staring at Bayonetta with conviction, telling her he's here to stop her, and even though he looks like an angel, if she messes with him, she'll find out he's far from one. Bayonetta laughs at this corny line, asking if this is the first time he's ever insulted someone, and that was adorable. Pitt is very disturbed by this, saying that was supposed to be a threat, and the fact that she only took that as an insult really bothers him. Pitt and Bayonetta rapidly fly towards each other, beginning a battle between them at the base of Fimbulventer. Bayonetta begins summoning her demons, and Pitt is able to maneuver and evade their monstrous attacks. Bayonetta summons Madama Butterfly, and she begins throwing her own attacks at Pitt. Pitt is able to fly along Madama Butterfly's massive arm, trying to close in on Bayonetta. He sees the red glow of the left eye on Bayonetta, remembering the image of the eye at Lucca's house, giving him conviction to get the eye from her. He clashes with Bayonetta again, and their attacks carry them all over the base of the mountain. Cereza gets away from the boulder, trying to call out to her, "Mommy!" Pitt and Bayonetta can both unleash a flurry of attacks on each other, but in terms of speed and agility, Pitt has her down, and can land more attacks on her. Bayonetta then uses the fist of Gamora to stop Pitt's next attack, leaving him confused, and he barely avoids Gamora's devastating punch. Pitt returns to the ground at great speed, creating a whirlwind of dust, rocks, and other debris to throw at Bayonetta. He then sends the flurry at Bayonetta, unaware that Cereza is in its path. Bayonetta sees what's about to happen, then gets her own conviction. She summons Gamora's upper half to eat the debris, saving Cereza from harm. Gamora glares at Pitt, and Pitt chuckles nervously as Gamora punches Pitt all the way to the other side of the base of the mountain, slamming against a large boulder and limply falling to the ground. Pitt strains trying to get up and brings his two blades together to form his double-edged sword in order to assist him to stand up. Bayonetta approaches him again with Cereza by her side. Bayonetta stares down at Pitt with contempt, acknowledging his performance in this fight. For an angel. Pitt still strains standing up, barely flapping his wings to get him up. Bayonetta, confused, asks him why he's still getting up, and asking who he is. Pitt concentrates for a moment and gathers strength in his wings. Using its strength in the blink of an eye in a speed blitz, he flies past Bayonetta. Before Bayonetta can process what happened, Pitt appears 10 feet behind her, holding the left eye that he just nabbed from Bayonetta. Bayonetta is stunned, and Pitt tells her his name is Pitt, and he's here to stop her. Bayonetta asks him what he's stopping exactly, and before Pitt can respond, the left eye he holds gives him a flurry of visions of Bayonetta and her past as an Umbran witch, seeing the history of the two clans as well as when Jeanne and Baldur confronted her and used the curse to put her under her slumber, as well as when Bayonetta woke up and lastly got a glimpse of Antonio Redgrave's mutilated corpse in the lake. Pitt snaps back into reality, instinctively dropping the left eye, panting. He looks back at a very confused Bayonetta, sternly telling her she has some explaining to do. Bayonetta smiles, getting her red eyes and demonic voice out, seemingly growing in size as her body begins merging with Madame Butterfly's body. She uses her foot to pin down Pitt to the ground, laughing and asking him if he means to torture her for the answers. Pitt struggles to breathe, barely muttering, "How about lunch?" Bayonetta pauses for a moment, quickly removing her grasp on Pitt and returning to her original form, confused and asking, "What?" It immediately cuts to Pitt and Bayonetta sitting in an outside diner in Noatun at a table for two with a third chair pulled up for Cereza. Bayonetta, confused and crossing her arms, asks Pitt how he did that, implying how he got her to agree for lunch. Pitt tells her that the left eye that she has, pointing to the left eye he had given back to Bayonetta, just showed him a lot of disturbing stuff as if he was supposed to have the first idea of what he just saw. Bayonetta feels the same way, asking Pitt if he really just set up a date. Pitt tells Bayonetta that this is an interrogation. It's just that torture isn't his style. Bayonetta says clearly they haven't taught him how to spell that word yet in the 3rd grade. He tells Bayonetta that he was sent here from the Light Realm to find her, because her existence by being born of a Lumen Sage and Umbran Witch upsets the balance of this universe. Bayonetta says it's not her fault her parents pulled a Romeo and Juliet, telling Pitt she can't exactly get them to unfuck each other. Pitt quietly says, "Oh my god," and tries to forget he just heard that. Pitt tries to remain on topic and tells her he saw the different memories of her past as well as the other Umbran witches, but only in flashes, so he needs her to clear them up, especially what happened at the lake. Bayonetta tells him she lost her memories since she woke up, and she's also been getting flashes, so right now she won't be much help. Pitt sighs again and tells her but she can tell him what happened at the lake after she woke up. Bayonetta asks Pitt why he wants to know about the lake so bad, and Pitt leans forward, telling her he made a promise to the kid that was there whose father she killed that he would find the answers for him. Bayonetta tells him to slow down, asking what some kid thinks she did. Pitt is confused by this and asks her what she thinks she did. Bayonetta explains how she faded in and out of consciousness when she woke up in the lake and some kind of force had lifted her and that man into the air, but she didn't get a good look at who. Next thing she knew, she was dropped back into the lake and the guy was dead. If she did kill him, it wasn't on purpose. Pitt stresses and says that isn't good enough for the kid, that there's got to be more. Bayonetta says she doesn't know what to tell him, that's all she knows. Pitt collects himself and tells Bayonetta that so far she doesn't give him the vibe that she would kill some kid's father for no reason, but he still has yet to be convinced it wasn't her, and as far as he knows, he could have killed her parents, and he says that as he points at Cereza. Cereza says, "No, silly, that's impossible. Bayonetta's my mummy." Stunned, Pitt looks back at Bayonetta and Bayonetta smiles at him nervously, and Pitt asks Bayonetta, "Are you kidding me?" Bayonetta tries to counter back, assuring Pitt that's just what the kid calls her, and that she's not her actual mommy. Changing the subject again, Pitt then asks Bayonetta what her goal is by being here. She tells him she just wants to find the answers about her past, and that she thinks finding the right eye and her father will do that. Pitt looks stern again, asking her if that means she wants to merge the eyes together to awaken Jubileus. And puzzled, Bayonetta says hell no. Pitt is now confused himself, asking what? Bayonetta says yeah, that's a terrible idea, mentioning how with enough memories she gathered, she knows that the witches from her past never wanted that either. That's why they and the sages killed each other. Pitt says whoa, admitting he didn't expect that, saying that their interests actually align here. He mentions Bayonetta's father, asking if it's Baldur. Bayonetta confirms it, saying it sounds like if he sticks with her and Cereza, he might find the answers that he's looking for as well. Pitt says that either way, it doesn't change the fact that her existence upsets the balance of the universe, but maybe now it goes deeper deeper than he initially thought, and that it's worth investigating. Bayonetta smiles, saying that's good enough for her, telling Pitt welcome to the fucking team. Pitt says he wishes Bayonetta wouldn't swear in front of the kid, and Bayonetta shrugs it off, telling him she's a kid, she can't understand what they're saying. Cereza then happily yells, "Fuck!" Other customers look back at Bayonetta, appalled by the vulgar language, and Pitt shrinks in embarrassment, once again muttering, "Oh my god." Unfazed, Bayonetta tries to remember all the reinforcements Baldur has helping him, listing off the angels and Jeanne, and trying to remember who else is helping Baldur. Pitt asks if them two would be enough to take him on, and Bayonetta she's sure Rodin would help them. Then she remembers the demon army Rodin mentioned, mentioning that Baldur recruited a bunch of them too, and Pitt is confused why Bayonetta was excited mentioning the demon army. Bayonetta says she can recruit demons too, but then she wonders why she hasn't seen any demons yet. It cuts to Bayonetta in a phone booth with Pitt and Cereza standing outside. Rodin picks up the phone in his bar saying, "You've reached the gates of hell." Bayonetta mentions how Rodin told her about Baldur going to Inferno to recruit demons for his army to fight for the revival of Jubileus, but she was curious why she hasn't seen any demons yet. Rodin mentions that he recalls some demons from his time in Inferno being able to disguise themselves, saying that they learned it from a Lumen sage. So Baldur probably taught his army how to do that when he recruited them. Bayonetta says that makes sense, but how is she supposed to be able to tell them apart? Rodin thinks for a second and says he guesses just to not kill anybody unless they attack her, because he can't exactly picture an average Joe picking a fight with a goth chick the size of an NBA player. Bayonetta says that's true, mentioning how she's gonna go to hell to recruit her own demons to fight against Baldur. They have a moment of silence, her assuming that Rodin would think that's a bad idea, but he says sure, he thinks that's a good plan. Another moment of silence as Bayonetta is surprised by this, asking if he's sure. Rodin says totally, Umbran witches used to do that all the time to get their contracts going with them. Bayonetta thanks Rodin for his help and they hang up. Bayonetta leaves the phone booth smiling ear to ear and telling Pitt and Cereza they're going to hell. Cuts to Bayonetta and Pitt back at the base of Fimbulventor, and Pitt asks what they're doing back here. Bayonetta, still smiling, tells him and Cereza that this place is the doorway to the Trinity of Realities, and that this is the quickest way to hell, well, besides killing yourself. Pitt sighs once again, saying, "Oh my god." A montage begins of Bayonetta, Pitt, and Cereza journeying up the mountain as they see multiple signs along the way telling them to turn back due to the imminent danger ahead. Pitt and Bayonetta are able to fly up very steep parts of the mountain while helping Cereza up. They eventually cross a narrow passageway, crossing by a decayed human torso impaled by a sharp rock. They eventually get to a safe passageway and are nearing the doorway at the top of Fimbulventor. Bayonetta looks up to see a plethora of Paradiso angels swarming down on her. Bayonetta casually asks Pitt and Cereza for their safety and her convenience. They can see those angels wanting to kill them, right? Pitt and Cereza both say yes, because Pitt's also an angel, so he can see them, and normally they're invisible to the human eye. And Bayonetta tells Pitt to get Cereza to safety and that she's got this. Pitt agrees and gets Cereza away. Cereza is scared for Bayonetta, but Pitt reassures Cereza that she'll be okay and that she can handle herself. Pitt mutters to himself how he keeps getting put on babysitting duty. The angels swarm around Bayonetta, but she can easily attack them with her own weapons as well as demons, who start ripping apart each angel. Gamora eats and tears apart numerous angels. Madama Butterfly impales multiple angels coming at her at once, as if it's an angel kebab, and her other demons do work as well. Bayonetta eventually defeats all the angels and tells Pitt and Cereza it's safe now, but to watch their step. Pitt and Cereza notice the massive blood puddle in front of them, and Pitt flies Cereza over it, feeling like he's about to vomit. Bayonetta walks along next to them as she notices the final angel barely able to crawl on the ground due to its legs being ripped off, and Bayonetta shoots it in the head as she walks next to it, adding brains to the red puddle. Bayonetta, Pitt, and Cereza make it to the doorways. Pitt says they need to figure out a way in, and Bayonetta cuts him off, saying it looks like they got it as the doorway to Inferno immediately begins opening up. Bayonetta gets out the left eye, saying she's glad she's got this thing around. Bayonetta, Pitt, and Cereza step inside Inferno, where an enormous lake of fire surrounds some kind of city. Along the walls of Inferno look like prison cells. The three approach the ferryman, leading to a platform that would lead them into the city. A demon named after Charon, ferryman of Hades in Greek mythology. Charon acknowledges Bayonetta as an Umbran witch, saying he thought they went extinct over 500 years ago. Bayonetta says yeah, well, more like endangered. Either way, she's here on business. Charon asks if she's here for the usual, and Bayonetta confirms it. Charon says very well, and guides the three of them to the platform. As they get to the platform, Charon tells Bayonetta to be warned. Many demons were taken from Inferno to join the one called Baldur, the last remaining Lumen sage. Bayonetta says she knows that, but wants to know if there's still some worthy demons here that can help her. And Charon says, oh yes, saying she will still find some of the worst in here, and there's never any shortage of that type here in Inferno. Bayonetta says good, that's what she's looking for. Charon turns to Pitt, telling him to especially be careful, as the folks here don't exactly take to his kind. Pitt says he figured, but he's only here to make sure she doesn't do something stupid. Charon says what he could tell by their situation so far, that seems fair. The platform platform keeps moving and Bayonetta sits next to Cereza, who hasn't spoken in a while, but still clutches her cat doll Cheshire. Bayonetta thinks she's adorable, reminding Cereza that she shouldn't be stared with her around, and that she's doing a great job hanging in there and not crying. She especially thanks Cereza for not crying, as that's something she doesn't want to deal with. Cereza smiles at Bayonetta, and Bayonetta asks where Cereza got the doll from. Cereza says she got her this doll, mummy, and told her to cherish it forever. That's why Cereza named it Cheshire. Bayonetta sighs and tells Cereza she's okay with Cereza calling her that now, and that it's flattering to her, but she surely must know at this point that Bayonetta's not actually her mummy, saying that she's far too shitty an influence on her, mentioning how she swears a lot and kills people. That's not how mummies are supposed to influence their kids. Cereza says that's okay, nobody's perfect and that there's good and bad in all of us. Pitt looks up after hearing this and looks over at them listening in. Cereza says sometimes people do bad things for good reasons and people can also do good things for bad reasons. Personally, she wishes she were with people who do bad things for a good reason, because even though they're doing bad things, their hearts are still in the right place. Pitt says that's deep, saying Bayonetta could learn a thing or two from her. Bayonetta chuckles and says yeah, she's right. She thinks for a moment about Baldur and Jeanne, thinking about Baldur repeating the line, as long as his daughter is safe, he is okay with delaying Jubileus' revival, and Jeanne putting the Hylian curse on Bayonetta. She still doesn't understand the whole situation, so it drives her conviction more. The platform makes it to the city, and it goes to Bayonetta, Pitt, and Cereza walking into the roughest bar in Inferno. Bayonetta walks in, but the bouncer stops Pitt and Cereza, asking for ID. Pitt says it's okay, they're with her, pointing at Bayonetta. The bouncer says he was talking to Pitt, and Pitt groans in annoyance. Pitt and Cereza catch up to Bayonetta as she approaches the main bartender, immediately being recognized as an Umbran witch, his favorite kind of customer, and asking her if she's here on some old-fashioned business and contracting. Pitt and Cereza make it to Bayonetta, and the bartender is confused to see an angel there, but Pitt clears it up saying he's with her. Bayonetta confirms it, saying she wants some of the roughest demons here to take on Baldur's army. The bartender is taken aback by this, saying, "You're taking on Baldur?" loud enough for the whole bar to hear. They all go quiet and stare at Bayonetta, and Bayonetta sarcastically thanks the bartender. The bartender tells Bayonetta to tell all of them that, and see how they feel about it, then announcing to everyone not to worry about the angel here, and that he's with her. Pitt nervously smiles and waves. Bayonetta starts explaining to them what Baldur's up to, and that she's here to recruit and make contracts with demons to fight against Baldur. A demon asks, like Queen Sheba? Bayonetta says she'd be nice, but anyone else here? A demon in the spar speaks up, saying Baldur took a bunch of them, saying there's too many to go up against. They heard about his plans to unite the eyes of the world to revive Jubileus to combine the three realities. Bayonetta asks why they didn't go along with it then, and another demon speaks up saying because it's a terrible idea. Another demon speaks up saying the angels of Paradiso would dictate everything anyway, and that at least while they're here, they don't have to see any of those fuck-face angels, telling Pitt no offense. Pitt says he's good. Bayonetta reveals she's Baldur's daughter, and that she has the left eye. She doesn't know why she even cares about this, but all she knows is if the realms combine with each other, everything will go to shit. She's here to find the ones who will help them stand up to him and prevent Jubileus from coming back. An unrevealed demon speaks up with a booming voice from across the bar, saying, "I'll help you out." A tall demon is revealed at a booth with pitch black skin, gleaming white eyes, and fangs resembling Baraka from Mortal Kombat. It's not actually Baraka, it's just picture his face. That's essentially what this demon's face looks like. The demon stands up, being almost as tall as the ceiling in the bar, which is like at least 10 or 11 feet, and all the other demons are terrified, with the bartender saying the name Malvolado, and that Malvolado has more beef with Baldur than anyone else here. Malvolado steps up to Bayonetta, towering over her, and finishing its statement by saying, "on one condition." Bayonetta asks what that is, and Malvolado says that she and the current demon she has must defeat it. Bayonetta says sure, without hesitation, and Pitt has a mini panic attack, saying this is why he's here, to not let her do anything stupid. Bayonetta tells him not to worry, because now she actually gives a shit. Bayonetta and Malvolado face off in an arena in a different part of the city within Inferno, and Malvolado laughs evilly, summoning large blades on its arms. Bayonetta does her Umbran ritual to summon her main two demons, Gamora and Madama Butterfly. Malvolado continues laughing, asking, "That's it?" And she says that's all she needs. Pitt and Cereza watch from an upper area, and he gets a very unsettling feeling about Malvolado. The fight begins, and Gamora and Madama Butterfly charge at Malvolado, with Bayonetta herself charging too. Malvolado displays its incredible speed and agility, and Pitt is stunned, to suspecting that Malvolado may even be quicker than Pitt. Pitt tells himself that she can't keep up with that. Bayonetta directs several punches from Gamora at Malvolado, but the demon can dodge them effortlessly while slashing Gamora's body, making Gamora shriek in pain. Malvolado continues laughing maniacally, and then clashes with Madama Butterfly. They hit each other with a flurry of attacks, but Malvolado still has greater speed than Madama Madama Butterfly, eventually able to overpower her as well. The battle continues after repeated clashes, and Malvolado starts getting cocky. Bayonetta uses this distraction and rushes from behind, blasting it with her weapons. Malvolado turns around and takes several melee attacks from Bayonetta. After another clash, the left eye flashes red again, sending another flurry of memories through her head. Getting an idea, she starts merging with Madama Butterfly to give her more power and speed, and eventually does an instantaneous kick backflip, sending Malvolado flying into the air in slow motion while Bayonetta lands and collects herself in real time. Pit is also in slow motion. Same with the entire arena, caught off guard by Bayonetta's sudden increase in speed from the stands. Bayonetta laughs, declaring, "Witch time, bitch!" telling Malvolado to dodge this. In midair, Malvolado sees Gamora's massive fist descend down on it and seemingly crush Malvolado to the ground, utterly defeating it. Bayonetta wins the battle and sends the demons back into her arsenal. She approaches Malvolado and reaches out her hand to help it up. Malvolado accepts it and stands up, telling Bayonetta a deal's a deal, shaking her hand and being sent away to Bayonetta's arsenal with her other demons. It transitions out of Inferno to Bayonetta, Pit, and Cereza riding another train going from Noatun to Vigrid. Pit is still impressed by Bayonetta's fight and asks how she did that against Malvolado. Bayonetta guesses she's still learning old Umbran techniques thanks to the left eye. That was a time-slowing technique called Witch Time that allows her to temporarily slow down time all around her. Pit asks her if she thinks it'll be enough to take on Baldur, but Bayonetta doesn't know whether she can convince him to change his mind about Jubileus, or if she thinks she can defeat him if she has to. She still doesn't know who she is or what her purpose is. Pit listens and Bayonetta continues, asking herself if her purpose might be to help Baldur revive Jubileus, because as far as she knows, Baldur is the only one that actually cares about her, and there could have been a time in her past where she actually agreed with him. Pit asks what about the other witches, saying they were against Jubileus' revival. Bayonetta says that the Umbran witches imprisoned her mother and the sages exiled her father because they conceived her, and from what she's gathered from her memories, so far the witches treated her like shit her whole life. Even her best friend tried to kill her since she came back, and it drives her crazy because she doesn't even know why, or why she was the one who put the Hylian curse on Bayonetta. Pit tells Bayonetta he thinks when Bayonetta gathers more memories that she'll have some closure on all this, and since being here, he's gotten a new perspective on how the world works. Bayonetta cracks a quick joke, telling him she's a bad influence on him. Pit chuckles, saying it's about the people here. There are good and bad people everywhere, on all sides of the world, and even within both the witches and sages. Bayonetta looks confused, and Pit tells her that there's darkness in everyone, telling her to believe him. He should know all about that. Quick reference to something. And that no matter how evil someone is or how evil someone thinks they are, he likes to think that within them there's opportunity for redemption, or at least hearing their reasonings for doing those bad things. That in itself is balance. Pit says this as he pulls out a device with a yin and yang symbol on it. Bayonetta realizes what he's saying, seeing the darkness within the light and the light within the darkness. Bayonetta focuses on the darkness and the dot of white within it, getting a quick glimpse of darken within her mind, the source of her power, but also sees the white dot, saying that she wants to believe that there's good inside of her. She looks at Cereza, repeating Cereza's words. She'd rather be with someone who does bad things for good reasons than someone who does good things for bad reasons. Cereza smiles at Bayonetta, telling her now she gets it. Bayonetta looks at Pit's yin and yang device again and takes out the left eye, matching it up with the white dot. She identifies the dark part as herself and the white part as Baldur, and marking the dark spot as the right eye. She says after 500 years, Baldur will definitely either have the right eye or have it close to him in Vigrid. She looks at the dark spot in the white section, remembering Baldur's conversation with Jeanne before she put the curse on her, repeating as long as his daughter's safe. Bayonetta looks out of the train window and sees the city of Vigrid and the large swarm of Paradiso angels flying over the city. She points it out to Pit and Cereza, saying they're definitely where they need to be. Pit agrees, saying they haven't seen that many angels yet. Bayonetta says they're going to find Baldur and find out what he's really after. Another glimpse of Baldur is shown with his eyes closed. He smiles and opens his eyes, telling himself he can sense the left eye getting closer, and that he knew she could do it. Fortitudo enters Baldur's office, telling him he reports that their scouts identified an angel with Bayonetta. Baldur's confused, asking if it's one of theirs. Fortitudo says no, it appears to be some kind of angel from another world, and it looks like a teenage boy. Baldur asks what about it, and Fortitudo says that he was present when Bayonetta killed multitudes of their angels. Baldur realizes it now, muttering, "The Light Realm," saying that Bayonetta will not see things according to his vision right now, and the Light Realm seeks to interfere in Jubileus' new world, calling them traitors. He orders their best angels to kill him, and that only his daughter will make it to him alive. Fortitudo shudders at the mention of the Light Realm, asking if he really thinks it would be wise to take them on. Baldur tells tells Fortitudo that Jubileus' power was enough to attract the attention of Galeem and Darkin, and once the realms merge, nothing will stop her. Bayonetta, Pit, and Cereza make it to Vigrid, and Pit asks how they're going to find where Baldur's being held up. Bayonetta says, "Oh, that's easy," pointing out the airbase she can see in the distance where multiple swarms of angels swoop near the ground, and she finishes by saying they just have to get one of them to talk. Pit gets nervous, asking what she's planning, and Bayonetta says torture may not be his thing, but she has no problem with it. She says this as she summons a demonic chainsaw from Inferno. Bayonetta looks back at Pit and smiles, saying unless he wants to take one of them to lunch too. Pit quietly mutters, "Oh my god," again. The three make it to the airbase, and it's occupied by several members of the Vigrid Air Force. They can't see the angels in the skies above their base, so to them it would only seem that Pit and Bayonetta are intruding their base. Pit quietly asks what the plan is, and Bayonetta emerges into the open, calling out to the angels. Pit is in disbelief and tells Cereza to go ahead, and then Cereza cuts him off, saying, "Yep, hide, she knows the drill now." The angels see Bayonetta below and Pit walking to stand by her, and the leading angel says it's her, the one Baldur seeks. They see Pit as well, and tell each other they've been instructed to eliminate him. Pit angrily asks Bayonetta what she's thinking, and she asks what the big deal is. She's getting their attention. Pit says the big deal is that she's reckless, and that she puts herself in danger when she should be learning more about the enemy. Bayonetta sees the platoon of angels closing in on them with murderous intent, and tells him they definitely want to kill her. The leading angel tells the angels not to kill the Umbran Witch, only the angel boy. The angels get to Bayonetta and Pit, and they start effortlessly taking on the angels while they continue to argue. Bayonetta deals lethal damage with her demons and weapons, while Pit knocks them out. While Pit dodges several attacks, he angrily asks Bayonetta why she's even fighting if she puts such little care forward. The Air Force eventually sees Pit and Bayonetta on the base, radioing the other soldiers of the intruders, saying it looks like they're fighting something. Maybe with each other? Because again, they can't see the angels. The soldiers move quickly to respond, getting their weapons and jets out to deal with the intruders. Bayonetta gets angry at Pit as well, asking Pit if he thinks she doesn't care. This is just how she does things. Pit challenges that, asking if that's how she felt 500 years ago. Bayonetta is extremely frustrated, yelling at Pit that she doesn't know, so Pit continues grilling her, asking her what she's even fighting for now. Bayonetta's eyes glow red, screaming that she doesn't know, and she instantly uses Malvolado's powerful arm blades to extend and impale the majority of the entire platoon while they continue descending down on her from the sky. Pit is stunned as Bayonetta retracts Malvolado's power, and numerous bloodied, dead angels limply land on the ground around them, killed instantly. Bayonetta catches a surviving angel by the throat and slashes it as Pit tries to yell no at her. The angel's throat is slit as it gasps for air and blood gushes out of its throat. It collapses onto the ground, and Pit stares at Bayonetta as she walks over to the dying angel. Pit coldly asks her how he plans on getting that information from a dying angel. Bayonetta ignores him and uses witch time to only affect the dying angel. Bayonetta kneels down over the angel, telling the angel she wants to know where Baldur is. Time is slowed down for the angel, and with its slashed throat, the angel can't even respond. Bayonetta explains what's happening to the angel, saying that with all the pain the angel's feeling right now, the only thing that will kill it is blood loss. With time slowed, it will take much longer to be put out of its misery, so she will only let that happen if it tells her where he is. Pit is horrified by what Bayonetta's doing, and looks up to the sky to see another platoon of angels led by much bigger angels heading their way, as well as F-16s closing in on their position. That's when Pit realizes the military found them and is going to kill them. He yells at Bayonetta again, telling her they're not done and that the angels in the military are after them. Bayonetta sees them, then looks back down, coming back to her senses and telling the angel that it better hurry up. Her and Pit don't have all day, but this angel sure as hell does. Bayonetta speeds up time for the angel slightly, enough for the angel to reveal the location, saying Isla Delphi. The angel gets cut off when a missile from the F-16 blows up, killing the angel instantly and sending Bayonetta flying. Pit quickly flies after her and catches her. Cereza is horrified and gets out of her hiding spot to catch up with them. Bayonetta recovers and the two begin fighting together again. Despite their argument, Pit and Bayonetta fight together well. Bayonetta kills several angels and Pit slashes at them, leaving them with non-fatal wounds, but still immobilizing them. They are seemingly on a roll when all of a sudden Pit gets a holographic message of light appearing in front of him, revealing Zanza. Zanza is projected in the light and demands Pit to return to the light realm at once. Pit tries to concentrate on the fight, but can't see fully with Zanza's projection in front of him. Pit says he can't right now. Zanza demands to know why and what's going on, and if he's in a fight. Pit tries to explain and tells him he can't talk right now. Zanza says no, Pit's mission is over and he went completely against his instructions, so he is to return to the light realm now to account for his crimes. Pit's mind is distracted and in a complete flurry of emotions, and that brief, devastating second causes one of the large angels to thrust a large blade right through Pit's stomach and pour blood out of him as Pit screams in pain. The hologram call ends as the angel hoists Pitt's body into the air with blood leaking down the blade. Pitt's body slowly slides down the blade, impaling him more, and making him continue to scream in agony. Bayonetta sees this and calls out to Pitt in devastation, and she promptly uses Malvolado's power to immediately cut off the large angel's arm, losing its grasp on Pitt. Pitt falls and the blade tips the other way, with Pitt's body falling out of the blade. Pitt winces in pain as Bayonetta catches him, summoning Madama Butterfly's wings. Everything seems to move slower for Pitt as he blankly looks to the sky. He looks down to see Cereza running towards them, and he looks back to the sky, accepting what he's done, and can barely whisper Palutena's name. A light portal is promptly summoned in the sky and moves diagonally downward to take Pitt, Bayonetta, and Cereza through the light portal. With all three of them in the light realm, Pitt lays on the ground as he continues to lose blood, and Bayonetta and Cereza kneel over him. Cereza's crying, and Bayonetta is freaking out and profusely apologizing to Pitt. Pitt tries to tell her it's okay and that he needs Palutena right now. Bayonetta looks around where they are and realizes they're in a lapis and golden palace. Bayonetta sees a woman with an angelic demeanor and green hair sprint over to them, calling out for Pitt. Bayonetta holds him out as a small puddle of Pitt's blood is all over her hands and the floor. Palutena takes him and thanks Bayonetta, saying she won't tell anyone she's here. Bayonetta sighs in relief, leaving Pitt in Palutena's hands. Bayonetta and Cereza sit on a bench within the palace as Palutena returns to her. Palutena tells Bayonetta she has Pitt in a medical pod and that his condition is stabilized, and that he'll be okay. Bayonetta is relieved, but grows sad again, saying that this was her fault. Palutena sits next to Bayonetta, asking why she thinks that. Bayonetta says she woke up from a 500-year coma, and that she doesn't remember who she is. As a result, she's gotten reckless, and couldn't even explain to Pitt what she's fighting for, or what she believed in before she woke up. Palutena tells Bayonetta that the Light Realm knows who Bayonetta is, and that her existence as blood of both Umbran Witch and Lumen Sage threw off the balance of her universe. Bayonetta says she knows that part, but there's nothing she can do about it. Palutena finishes her sentence though, saying despite that, she believes she is here for another reason, and frankly, she doesn't have to remember who she was or what she believed in during the past to forge her own destiny now. And Palutena tells Bayonetta she can tell she wants to do good, and it's no secret that her and Pitt care about each other, with Bayonetta saving Pitt's life and Pitt trusting her enough to bring her here to the Light Realm. Bayonetta asks her if she knows when Pitt will be ready to return to her world with her, but Palutena sadly tells her he will not be able to return with her, explaining that the Council of Light representatives gave him a mission to do recon in her world to find out information about her. Instead, he teamed up with her in a completely different mission that they wanted Pitt to be in no part of, and they are ordering him to report to the Council to face judgment for what he's done. Bayonetta is dumbfounded, saying that's not fair. She dragged him into this, and that they were going to take on Baldur. Palutena says that since Baldur is a Lumen Sage, he is a light representative of her world, so Pitt will not be able to convince them of his innocence. Bayonetta stands up and says she has to help him, but Palutena stops her, begging her not to interfere and make things worse for Pitt, saying if anyone sees Bayonetta here in the Light Realm, she could be executed immediately because of her reputation. Bayonetta eventually accepts that, and Palutena tells Bayonetta she will open a light portal for her when she's ready to return to her world. Bayonetta sadly tells herself that he didn't get to find out what happened to that kid's father, and that she will finish his mission for him, but that she needs to take a walk first. Palutena is concerned, but Bayonetta promises she won't interfere with Pitt's hearing. Pitt is seen in the medical pod, with the advances of its technology rapidly sealing Pitt's wound and cleaning him up. He wakes up when the procedure is over, feeling much better, but knows that he will have to report to the Council of Light Representatives. The scene moves to Pitt being at the main hall with various light representatives sitting at each council chair. Pitt stares blankly ahead as representatives like Naga and Arceus, and Pitt sees the chair in the center revealing Zanza, the eventual antagonist of the Xenoblade franchise, and they stare at each other coldly. Zanza explains to Pitt his crimes, knowingly going against his very simple mission of recon in the witch's universe, and not only that, aligning himself with her, knowing what kind of threat of imbalance the witch brings to said universe. Bayonetta is seen in the main hall, sneaking around people and trying to hear Pitt's hearing. She gets in a good spot and listens in. Pitt doesn't sugarcoat anything, explaining that part of finding out information about her was finding out what her goals were, whether she wanted to help bring balance or destroy it. Zanza says he seriously doubts that matters, because her very existence threatens the balance of light and darkness. Pitt demands to know if they really know that for sure. They don't know everything about her, and she doesn't even remember everything herself. As far as they're concerned, they're going after the wrong person. The council is confused, and Pitt elaborates, saying they are on a mission to stop a lumen sage named Baldur from using Jubileus' power of the left and right eyes of darkness and light to merge the three realms of her universe, Paradiso and Inferno. Zanza says that's ridiculous. Even if that's true, the gods themselves locked away Jubileus, and it sounds like that will only be an issue if the witch meets up with the sage, which was Pitt's mission this whole time to prevent this. Pitt tells Zanza that Bayonetta is not the enemy. Zanza laughs at the name Bayonetta, and Bayonetta continues listening, appreciative of Pitt standing up for her. Pitt says it's true that she has the left eye, but she wants to use it to stop the realms from merging. If they merge, the balance of that universe will be worse than anything she could ever cause. Zanza asks Pitt if he's really naive enough to believe that witch's story. If this obviously preposterous tale is true, wanting to help revive Jubileus is something evil witches of darkness would strive for, since they want nothing more than for darkness to conquer balance, as all beings of darkness want, and it would be impossible for a lumen sage to pursue that since they've taken on the role of the light representatives for that universe, and the light realm doesn't go after their own. Zanza also mentions how the witches wiped them out, and Zanza personally tests Pitt to see if he knows where the witch's power comes from. Pitt quietly answers darken. Zanza says that's right. Pitt knows that, yet still aligns with the witch. Pitt gets angry, asking Zanza if he really thinks balance is really just that black and white. The council is confused and they look over at the black and white yin and yang symbol on one of the walls, but Pitt clarifies figuratively. Pitt tells the council that balance isn't just about the light or darkness, good or evil, or even Golem and Darken, and that it's within all of us. And he repeats what he said to Bayonetta, saying that there are good and bad people everywhere all over the world, and goodness and flaws exist within every living being. Pitt calls out the council, saying that their biggest flaw is believing that the light can only be good and believe in balance, and the darkness can only be evil and desire to overthrow balance. Pitt then says that his own flaws were believing in that idea for too long, and for listening to Zanza. Bayonetta leaves her hiding spot to walk around the main hall more, and notices a stairwell leading to a dungeon as dark power grows inside her. She checks her surroundings and goes down the stairs, eventually seeing a great seal of light housing a swirling being of darkness, revealing tentacles and pincers all around it. All of a sudden, Darken's eye rapidly turns to face Bayonetta. For a brief moment, for the first time in this movie, Bayonetta feels fear looking into its eye, even knowing of its captivity, and also the fact knowing that her power comes from this being, giving a presence of pure evil. She leaves immediately before anything can happen, and she heads back to Palutena's palace. Zanza tells Pitt that fortunately, words do not define one's place in the light realm. It is their actions. He tells Pitt that depending on what his next actions will be with this witch, will define his future in the light realm. Defeated, Pitt looks up at Zanza with strong conviction. Bayonetta returns to Palutena's palace, meeting up with her and Cereza, who stayed there, letting her know that she's ready to return to her world. Palutena understands and prepares a light portal. Before she leaves, Bayonetta asks Palutena to send a message of thanks to Pitt for all he's done so far. Palutena smiles and acknowledges Pitt as a great man, and apologizes that the light realm can't be of more help. Bayonetta assures her it's fine, and that this is her fight she needs to finish. Palutena pulls Bayonetta to the side again, telling Bayonetta she believes her, that this Baldur guy is dangerous and needs to be stopped. Palutena believes that Bayonetta can create her own existence in her universe, and she begs Bayonetta to save the balance of her universe. The light portal takes Bayonetta and Cereza back to the city of Vigrid, and Bayonetta says she thinks she can find out where Baldur is, and the only way to make sure is by checking the local library. Bayonetta says this as she stands in front of the library in Vigrid. Bayonetta and Cereza enter the library, and several people are confused by Bayonetta's appearance, as they're still not used to her yet. Bayonetta and Cereza walk up to one of the clerks, and Bayonetta says she needs information about the Isle de Fleur. The clerk is incredibly confused, and asks Bayonetta to repeat that. Bayonetta says it again, the Isle de Fleur, and asks if she has the pronunciation down, trying to remember exactly what the angel told her. Though she mentions on that last word he might have messed it up a bit, since his face was being blown up by an airstrike at the time. Bayonetta asks the clerk if she knows anything. The clerk can't even imagine what kind of situation that was, and asks if she means the Isla del Sol. Bayonetta asks if Vigrid has any other islands here, and the clerk says no, saying the Isla del Sol is an island that was constructed long ago off the Vigrid coast by. Bayonetta cuts her off, thanking her and confirming that's where she needs to go. In the light realm, Pitt sulks after his rough hearing with the Council of Representatives of his mission. He returns to Palutena's palace and plops into one of the seats in her palace. Palutena finds him and sits with him, asking how the hearing went. Pitt says that it's over, explaining how if he returns to Bayonetta's world and helps her again, he could be banished from the light realm. Palutena says she's sorry, and that Bayonetta wanted to thank Pitt for all his help so far. Pitt is sad, saying that he couldn't even figure out what happened to that kid's father, and that he has no choice but to stay here. Palutena smiles and asks Pitt who told him he doesn't have a choice. Pitt is confused and says Zanza, but Palutena continues, saying that the pride of the light realm is that everyone gets to choose their own destiny. Pitt tries to protest, saying again that if he helps her again, he could be banished. Palutena says he knows he could never be satisfied if he stayed here and did nothing. Pitt's depression starts turning to conviction as he continues speaking. He's a very convicted man. And Palutena says that he and Bayonetta have a camaraderie that hasn't existed with the light and darkness since the beginning of time, and they both know what the true threat is. Pitt understands, and Palutena asks if Pitt wants this, and Pitt says of course he does. Palutena smiles again, saying for far too long, the light realm has strayed from doing the right thing and only focused on managing balance. If he gets banished from the light realm for choosing to do the right thing, then the light realm doesn't deserve him. Pitt chuckles, saying he doesn't deserve her, and Palutena asks Pitt if he thinks she'd let anything happen to him, telling him to go. Rodin is shown in his bar in Manhattan when a light portal appears outside it. Rodin is confused until Pitt opens the door, making an entrance. Pitt sits at one of the bar stools with a serious look on his face. Rodin admits he doesn't see much of the angel kind in his bar, and Pitt says he wants the strongest apple cider he has. Rodin gives him a glass, and Pitt sips it and winces, saying not that strong. Rodin gets a phone call and picks it up, saying you've reached the gates of hell. Bayonetta answers in a phone booth in Vigrid, excited to tell him she knows that Baldur is somewhere on the Isla del Sol off the coast of Vigrid. Rodin tells himself he knew it, and Pitt asks if that's Bayonetta, and Rodin is confused, saying you know Bayonetta? Bayonetta asks who Rodin's talking to, and Rodin asks for Pitt's name. Pitt says it, then Rodin says Pitt. He's an angel who apparently knows her. Bayonetta is astounded to hear his name, but not only that, he's in Rodin's bar. Rodin confirms, and Bayonetta asks, what's he drinking? Apple juice? Rodin says he's actually drinking apple cider. Bayonetta says that's hardcore. But basically, she just wanted to call and let him know she found it and to wish her luck. Rodin says he won't need to. They're both heading to Vigrid now. He says this as he gains demonic power and opens up a portal leading to Vigrid. Baldur is seen meditating in his office, with the right eye levitating in front of him. He gets a flashback to 500 years ago as a younger version of himself, with his wife Rosa and infant daughter. His words to Rosa are repeated, saying they will do no such thing and that the universe will make room for their child, even if he has to force it to. It keeps going this time, with Baldur saying the eyes have the power to change their destiny, and knowing that such a power exists, he can't accept that because they come from different clans, they will be separated in the afterlife. Rosa tears up, telling him she can't live without him either. They look back at baby Bayonetta, and Baldur tells Rosa their daughter is the key to allowing them to be together. Baldur opens his eyes to the dark sky outside his office window, and the right eye starts gaining power. Baldur is in awe, quietly whispering that she is here. Bayonetta and Cereza stand at the entrance to the well-populated island, and she takes out the left eye, emanating the same power as the right eye. Jeanne is seen standing on top of one of the buildings and looking down at them. Bayonetta notices a portal opening up near her, and Pitt and Rodin walk through it as Rodin yells at Enzo to hold down the fort and not drink all his booze. Bayonetta sees them and reunites with Pitt and Rodin. Rodin sees Bayonetta's damaged weapons from the airbase battle and treats it like he just lost a relative. Bayonetta awkwardly apologizes about the weapons, and Rodin gets over it, giving her replacement weapons he took from the bar, saying these ones will suit her better. Bayonetta takes the demonic pistols, and long bayonets shoot out from underneath the barrels and retract, making Bayonetta very impressed. Baldur can see the group at the edge of the town and mutters that she still has company. He begins angrily whispering a chant. The chant goes on for a few seconds, and soon every resident of the island starts going through a disturbing transformation where their skin melts, sheds, and their bones snap to form different body parts, and several of them start roaring demonically. Bayonetta, Cereza, Rodin, and Pitt can see several transformations where they are, and they all get into battle stance. Bayonetta mentions that it looks like they found the demon army. Thousands of demons are formed and face the group of four, and Bayonetta points out the missile coming from the top of the tallest building, aiming right for them. Rodin steps up and says he can handle this, beginning his own transformation into his demonic form and sprouting large red angel wings. The missile shoots at them, and Rodin fires an energy projection fist at the missile, blowing it up in midair before it can get to them. The demons begin charging at all of them at once after it blows up. The fight begins, and Rodin yells to Bayonetta that they have to get her to Baldur. Bayonetta gets her guns out and says she'll clear a path. Bayonetta and Rodin start ripping through the hordes of demons, ambushing them. Bayonetta starts practically taking all of them in her path as Rodin realizes how powerful Bayonetta's become. He stops for a second and admires how well Bayonetta's doing in the fight, especially with her new weapons, and he says his signature line from the games: beautiful. Pitt attempts to fly Cereza out of the battle before getting cut off and dragged back down by the demons. He starts shielding Cereza as he twirls his blades all around him with enough force to slash away at any demons trying to reach him. Rodin helps Pitt out and clears out several of them. Bayonetta sees Cereza in a vulnerable spot as Pitt continues protecting her from the vicious demons, and she looks back at the tallest building. She calls out to Pitt to get Cereza to her, that she can get her to a safe position. Pitt understands and starts flying over the demons to get Cereza to Bayonetta when out of the corner of his eye, he sees another missile missile about to explode near them. He barely reacts as the missile explodes far enough away to not kill them, but every party involved in the battle gets sent flying. Pitt loses his grip on Cereza as he gets sent flying, and Cereza lands on the ground next to a surviving demon. Bayonetta and Rodin are both attempting to recover, and Pitt struggles to get up as he sees the ravenous demon about to kill Cereza. Pitt grows rageful and forces himself up, and with all his strength, he throws his double-edged blade at the demon, making a horizontal circular saw blade motion. The blade instantly rips through the demon's stomach, severing its top half of the body to the ground as blood gushes from it, and it lands on the ground screeching in pain. It still tries to crawl as the blade starts returning as if it's a boomerang, and the blade lands on the ground covered in blood. The demon freezes, and the top half of the demon's head slowly slides off and hits the ground as half of its brain falls out. Pitt catches up to Cereza, trying not to look at and gag at his fatality on the ground next to him, and Bayonetta recovers, accepting Cereza from Pitt and telling him that was hardcore. Pitt tells her she really is a bad influence. Rodin calls out to both of them, telling them it's not over yet, as an even bigger swarm of demons start rushing at them from the island. Rodin asks Bayonetta how many friends she made in Inferno, and she says she beat their toughest demon in front of them, so hopefully a lot. Rodin says that's good enough for him, as he begins summoning another portal. Pitt asks what Rodin's doing, and Rodin says he's calling the cavalry, telling Bayonetta and Cereza to go. Pitt tells her they'll be alright, and that he'll meet her up there. He's still on his own mission, remember? Bayonetta understands and flies Cereza towards the tallest tower. Rodin summons demons from Inferno and an all-out battle ensues on the streets of Isla del Sol. Baldur can see Bayonetta flying towards the tallest tower. He chuckles and says he appreciates her eagerness to see him, but she has to do one thing first. As Bayonetta flies through the sky, out of the corner of her eye, she sees Jeanne ambush her and knock her out of the air, going to the top of the different building. Jeanne and Bayonetta both struggle to get up, and Cereza lands on the ledge of the building, straining and trying to hang on. Bayonetta sees Cereza struggling and rushes to try and save her, but Jeanne stops her. Upon seeing Jeanne, Bayonetta's eyes glow red again. Jeanne asks Bayonetta if she's gotten more of her memories back, and Bayonetta replies that enough that this could now be considered a massacre. Jeanne laughs, asking if her dear friend has really gotten so cold towards her, considering all they've been through together. Bayonetta says nothing as Jeanne tells her she doesn't realize how important she really is to Baldur. He's the only one who really wanted the sages and witches to thrive together, not just coexist. Bayonetta asks then why did she lead the sages right to the witches to kill them. Jeanne laughs, telling her she clearly doesn't have the whole story, and that she'll need Baldur to tell her the rest of it. Bayonetta screams in rage as she torches through Jeanne, and Jeanne smiles, also gaining red eyes as they battle it out. Their fight is brutal, as they both summon weapons and demons against each other, shaking the roof of the building. Cereza panics, desperately trying to keep her grip on the ledge, when all of a sudden she hears a man's voice in her ear. He says, "There, my child. I will let no harm come to you." Cereza freezes for a second, and loses her grip on the ledge. She begins falling when all of a sudden, Fortitudo catches her, flying her away towards the tallest building. Bayonetta sees Fortitudo carrying Cereza and calls out to her, trying to reach her. She starts flying when all of a sudden she gets impaled right through the heart, screaming in pain. Jeanne says she shouldn't worry about the child. Cereza. Bayonetta realizes Jeanne called her that, and has a flashback to Jeanne as a child in first-person view. That's when they met for the first time when no one else was willing to be friends with Bayonetta because of her reputation. They walk together when they pass by a mirror, revealing Cereza in first-person view. Bayonetta snaps back to reality as Jeanne uses one of her demons to pull Bayonetta towards her, further impaling Bayonetta as she screams in pain and has more flashbacks. By the end of it, she gets the same flashback of 500 years ago, when Jeanne put Bayonetta in a slumber. Jeanne says she wishes to fight the outcast, pointing to Bayonetta. The Elder Witch forbids it, saying her blood is impure, being tainted by traces of Lumen Sage. Jeanne snaps at the Elder, saying that it doesn't matter since the Umbran Witches took her in, and that by doing so, the outcast became one of them whether the Elder likes it or not. The memory cuts to the fight when eventually the walls of their temple explode, revealing the Lumen Sages and Angels of Paradiso. A battle begins when Bayonetta tries to process the bloodshed occurring. Jeanne approaches Bayonetta, and Bayonetta tries to ask her what's happening, when eventually she sees the blue in Jeanne's gray eyes. Bayonetta realizes what's going on when Jeanne stabs Bayonetta in the stomach. Straining from being stabbed, she looks to her left at the small altar containing the left eye. She grabs it and jams its power onto Jeanne's body as Jeanne shrieks in pain from the left eye's power. It lasts a few seconds and she releases it from Jeanne. Stunned, Jeanne's eyes flicker until the blue leaves Jeanne's eyes. Jeanne struggles to process what happened, and Bayonetta apologizes that this happened to Jeanne, that the sages put her under their control. Jeanne says Cereza's name, and Bayonetta tells Jeanne to save herself and kill her. Jeanne knows what kind of monster she is, so she has to end it and save the balance of this universe. Jeanne retracts her blade from Bayonetta's stomach, and Bayonetta falls back, landing on her back and still holding the left eye. Bayonetta is on the ground, weakened, as Jeanne walks up to her. Jeanne stares down at Bayonetta as Baldur approaches as well, telling Jeanne well done for leading the sages here. Bayonetta, now reliving this memory, catches every detail. Baldur says that because of Jeanne's cooperation, he will ensure Jeanne's life is spared, and with the eyes ready to reunite, Jubileus's revival can commence. Jeanne freezes for a moment, looking back down at Bayonetta, and has an idea. She tells Baldur the eyes are not ready yet. Baldur asks what Jeanne means, and Jeanne says it takes time for each of the eyes to fully bond with their host, and since Cereza has never held the left eye before, she won't be powerful enough to carry out Jubileus's revival. At least, not until she's ready. Besides, it's not safe for her here. Baldur looks around at the ongoing battle as the witches and sages begin wiping each other out, and several other witches flee their temple. Baldur says she is a witch, so they'll hunt her. He asks Jeanne what she needs to do, and Jeanne says she can put both of them into a slumber to be put in isolated spots until the eyes reawaken, and when they do, she'll be there to find Cereza and lead her to him. Baldur tells Jeanne that as long as his daughter is safe, he is okay with delaying Jubileus's revival until she's ready. Baldur gives Jeanne the right eye, telling her she'll need this. The eyes are connected after all, and he's already bonded with it. Jeanne and Baldur's conversation is interrupted by the Elder Witch crawling towards them, on the verge of dying and demanding Jeanne tell her why she betrayed the witches. Baldur tells Jeanne to take care of it, then he walks over to the Elder Witch. The Elder Witch then confronts Baldur, saying he loved Rosa, and asking how he could do this to her people. Baldur picks up the Elder by the neck, hoists her in the air, and tells her not to be ridiculous. He tells the Elder he only ever loved Rosa, and that he never felt a thing towards the other witches. He then decapitates the Elder with his blade. Bayonetta looks back up at Jeanne, who looks down at her with conviction. Baldur returns to Jeanne, telling her even he must not know where Cereza will be, as he cannot risk revealing her location before she's ready. Jeanne looks back and tells Bayonetta she's going to put an ancient Hylian curse on her, a curse that the Umbran witches learned from the reaches of the multiverse. Jeanne reaches her hand out at Bayonetta and tells Bayonetta, if you were to wake up from your slumber, I would as well. However, Bayonetta catches what Jeanne actually says, as Jeanne breathes quietly while moving her mouth in different directions than what was spoken, with different subtitles showing up as Jeanne's actual words being, if I were to wake up from my slumber, you would as well. She continues by saying she bought them some time. Barely able to speak, Bayonetta begs Jeanne not to do this. A montage occurs of demons from Baldur's army taking Bayonetta to an isolated lake that would be later known as a lake in Manhattan, with the left eye, and Baldur putting Jeanne in a pod in his office in Vigrid, holding the right eye, repeating Baldur's words that the right and left eyes are connected, and it zooms in on the right eye as it resembles the subspace particles. The montage transitions to the subspace particles revealed on the homeworld of the subspace deities, right as the hand troops ambush and destroy their world, occurring 20 years before the present day. The particles disperse to different universes when one of them transports above the skies of Vigrid, being powerful enough to awaken the right eye, the light object of this universe. Jeanne wakes up with the right eye putting Jeanne under its control once again, and further, since the left eye is connected to the right eye, Bayonetta is shown in her slumber in the lake as she opens her eyes back to reality, revealing that's how the eyes woke up. Bayonetta is still impaled by Jeanne's blade and uses her strength to break out of it. She collapses and takes the left eye out of her pocket, using its power to seal her wound. Jeanne laughs and walks up to her, asking after all this time if she's really still not ready to bond with the left eye. Bayonetta pants, knowing what she has to do. In a split second, she jams the left eye onto Jeanne's body the same way from 500 years ago. Jeanne shrieks until the blue leaves her gray eyes. Baldur sees them from his office, thanking Jeanne and telling her she's served her purpose. Another missile is prepared from the top building, taking aim at Jeanne. Both witches collapse as Jeanne tries to collect herself. Bayonetta tries to help Jeanne recover, and Jeanne tells Bayonetta to listen to her. Bayonetta tries to calm down Jeanne, and Jeanne tells Bayonetta that she's inherited the true power of the left eye. Bayonetta asks what she means, and Jeanne mentions the ceremony for Jeanne, and explains how each stone contains a large portion of the eye's power, but the true power lies with the one most worthy to lead each clan. Jeanne tells Bayonetta the stone was powerful enough to relinquish Jeanne of the right eye's control, but it won't be enough to take on Baldur, who inherits the true power of the right eye as the last remaining luminary. Lumen Sage. Bayonetta tells Jeanne she's getting her out of here, but Jeanne ignores Bayonetta, starting a ritual with her concentrated breathing and placing her hand on Bayonetta's shoulder. Bayonetta asks what Jeanne's doing and tells her to stop when all of a sudden she gets a strong surge of dark power that courses all throughout her, flooding Bayonetta with the rest of her memories, receiving them all at once and getting a flash to her as a child with Rosa, her mother, kneeling down next to her and removing her veil and having a very similar appearance to Bayonetta. Rosa tells Cereza she has to go now, but wants her to know how much she loves her and would do anything for her. The darkness continues coursing through her as the light within her is completely engulfed by the dark power of the left eye. Bayonetta wakes up, panting as she realizes her new power. She holds Jeanne's hand, asking why she did that. Jeanne says Cereza asked her to restore balance, and now she's done that. Bayonetta doesn't understand, but sees the missile on top of the building that just launched at them. She quickly warns Jeanne, and Jeanne instinctively uses a demon to send Bayonetta flying off the roof as the missile detonates the entire roof. Bayonetta, in desperation, calls out to Jeanne as she crashes through the window of another building. Pitt sees the explosion happen and yells to Rodin he has to help her. Rodin tells him to go and that they've got this. Pitt immediately flies to the cloudy aftermath of the explosion, calling out to Bayonetta and Cereza. Bayonetta survives the crash, practically unscathed, and looks back up at the tallest building, growing silent and rageful, and she blinks as her eyes turn red, embracing the full dark power of the left eye. She uses the power of her demons in the eye to fly and crash into the main building at a blinding speed. Pitt is startled by this as he sees this from the other building, asking, Bayonetta? The scene moves to Bayonetta with glowing red eyes and maintaining her silent rage, and entering a dim hallway where several demons are. She begins summoning weapons from Inferno as she has her most brutal scene yet, cueing her hallway scene, decapitating demons, impaling them through their mouths and heads, blasting out their insides with burst fire weapons, summoning La Bolas to maul and shred demons, and Phantasmarini to stab and burn demons alive with its flame power. She begins screaming in rage as she shows no mercy towards anyone she lays eyes on. At the end of the hallway, a demon opens the door and asks if everyone's alright in here. It sees Bayonetta holding up a severed torso, and there's a brief moment of silence until the demon slowly closes the door, not wanting any part in that. The demon starts running away when Gamora's fist crashes through the entire wall leading to the next room, sending the demon flying. Bayonetta also made that motion with her fist and retracts Gamora back. She walks to the room when she realizes she's in Baldur's office. Baldur is sitting in his chair and turns around, revealing himself to Bayonetta. Bayonetta instinctively sprints toward him, but as she gets closer, she realizes she's getting younger when all of a sudden it's just Cereza running towards her father. Cereza happily makes it to Baldur and sits on his lap as the two of them reunite. Bayonetta is still standing at the entrance of the office, no longer with red eyes, telling Cereza to get away from him. Fortitudo is revealed in the corner of the office. Baldur looks over at Bayonetta and tells her she doesn't realize how long he's waited to see her again. He takes a second to look at her and tells her she looks so much like her mother. Bayonetta asks if he really has the right to bring her up when he's the one who ruined her life. Baldur grows sad, agreeing that if he never met Rosa, she might have been able to live a regular life as another Umbran witch, and perhaps the witch hunts would have never happened. But fate is absolute and unforgiving, and because she existed as a witch, she could not receive salvation. That meant by living in two different clans, they would be separated forever in the afterlife. Even with Cereza being born of both Lumen Sage and Umbran witch blood, her existence lies with the darkness. His dream is to change fate so that no one can be separated in the afterlife, no matter their lifestyles and beliefs, and that his dream is to simply live once again with his family. Rosa was killed in front of him by his own clan, a cowardly assassin, before he could accomplish that dream. He gets out of his chair and starts walking towards the center of the office as he continues. He says that's why, after Rosa was murdered, he stole the right eye for himself and used it to control Jeanne, to leak information to the sages where the witches were, so the sages would go there and the witches and sages would kill each other. He says he only cares for Cereza and her mother, and though reviving Jubileus would bring all people together, he just wants to be together with his family again. Fortitudo hears this, saying this is an outrage, taking the fact that Baldur used the sages and angels for his own gain. Baldur tells child Cereza to go to bed, that it's past her bedtime. Cereza happily agrees and heads towards another exit. Before she leaves, Baldur tells Cereza he loves her, and Cereza tells her father she loves him back. Baldur smiles, and as Cereza walks away, she slowly becomes light and vanishes. When that happens, Baldur throws a blade of light at Fortitudo's throat, piercing right through it and leaking blood. Fortitudo collapses to the ground, dying, and Bayonetta is stunned by this. Baldur says he never cared about the sages and angels' goal of Jubileus ruling after her revival, and all they would do is oppress the common folk. His plans are to bring true salvation, so that beings of light and dark can live together in true harmony with no conflict or oppression. Bayonetta tells Baldur that's not salvation. It's dooming this entire universe by Baldur cuts her off, finishing and asking, throwing off balance? He reminds Bayonetta that as a light representative, he's spent ample time in the light realm to learn enough of their ideals. He is saying he's not destroying balance. He's adjusting it to a balance where his daughter would not be seen as an abomination, but as a rightful citizen where she'd be welcomed with open arms. All of a sudden, Pitt crashes through Baldur's office window. Baldur reacts to Pitt instantly and deflects Pitt's attack off of him. Pitt lands next to Bayonetta and throws his double-edged blade at Baldur in the same horizontal circular saw blade fashion. Baldur holds up his hand and seemingly uses telekinesis to stop the blade in its tracks and slow down its spinning movement. When it stops, he lightly pushes the blade with his finger and it gets flung back at Pitt at a bewildering speed. Pitt dodges and catches the blade, twirling it enough to change its momentum and jam it into the ground. He picks it up and gets into a battle stance with Bayonetta. Baldur acknowledges Pitt as the Angel, taking it as he's from the Light Realm. Pitt doesn't say a word, and Baldur says he's also from the Light Realm, though that was before Pitt's time. Pitt snarls at him, and Baldur says he believes he knows what's going on now. At first, he thought Pitt was sent from the Light Realm to aid his daughter against Jubileus, but he can see in Pitt's eyes that he's gone rogue. He was silly to think for a second that the Light Realm would go against one of their own. Pitt only has one thing on his mind, saying, the boy. Baldur is confused and asks Pitt to clarify. Pitt says when Bayonetta woke up, the man who found her was killed, and had a son who explained everything to him. Baldur chuckles, mentioning the name Redgrave. Baldur tells the two of them ever since the end of the witch hunts centuries ago, he's been looking for her ever since so he would know her location for whenever she was ready to bond with the left eye. When just recently he was at one of his company's branches in Manhattan, he felt a presence of darkness unlike anything he's ever experienced since that fateful day, and he knew that his daughter was there somewhere. Fortunately, the timing couldn't have been any better, as an ambitious journalist who had been researching the witches and sages was also searching for the left eye. Baldur reveals he's the one who left an anonymous tip to the journalist that the left eye was somewhere in Manhattan, and eventually he found her. Bayonetta asks coldly what killed him then, and Baldur reveals it was his angels. It shows Bayonetta struggling to stay awake as she can barely see what's happening in front of her as the man, revealed to be hoisted up by Paradiso angels, gets his limbs torn off. Pitt freezes after hearing this information, and Baldur tells them the journalist had found out too much about his past, and to successfully keep his angel and demon allies, he had to keep his persona as Jubileus's ambassador and CEO of his company in check in order to not reveal his true intentions in all of this. Though he just told his angels the journalists wanted to interfere in Jubileus's revival. He says it really is quite easy to persuade them. They take it very seriously. He promises that Redgrave's death was nothing personal. Pitt stares wildly at Baldur and says it just became personal to him. Pitt and Bayonetta both speed blitz at Baldur and begin a battle, falling out of the office window. Baldur uses the true power of the right eye and wields the blue stone and sprouts wings of light. All three battlers can fly, and their battle gets taken across the dark skies of Vigrid, as well as the island. Pitt sneaks in hits on Baldur, but it truly is Bayonetta and Baldur, users of each eye, that really create an impact against each other as darkness and light itself clash against each other. Pitt sneaks in from behind, but Baldur anticipates it, telling Pitt he told him he doesn't care about angels. He throws Pitt with incredible force to the building where the missile blew up. Bayonetta gets thrown off and tries to go after Pitt when one of Baldur's lassos of light grasps Bayonetta by the throat, yanking her towards him. Baldur furiously asks her what this universe has ever done for her. He yells that the witches took her in, but they despised her, telling her that he's the only one who ever loved her. Bayonetta strains and struggles to breathe as both of them are high up in the sky. Pitt lands in the debris and sees a faint glowing red light. He goes to it and finds Jeanne there, revealed to be shielded from the blast, with the red stone containing the left eye's power in her hand. She gasps awake, and she instinctively asks where Cereza is. Bayonetta continues straining, and Baldur asks her doesn't she want to be accepted, and why won't she let him form a universe to see her the way he does. Bayonetta asks him if this is the kind of universe Rosa would be proud of. Everything stops, and Baldur grows cold and emotionless, telling her she never had to be willing to help him. All he needs from her is her power. Pitt and Jeanne go to the edge of the top of the building, and see Baldur fly to the stratosphere while dragging Bayonetta by the throat. Jeanne, stunned, tells Pitt he's going to revive Jubileus. Pitt wants to know how, and Jeanne explains how she gave the true power of the left eye to Cereza, but without the extra power from the red stone while Baldur still has the blue stone, Cereza doesn't stand a chance. Pitt realizes the name Cereza and connects it to Bayonetta, telling himself that should have been obvious. He says he can get the stone to her, but Jeanne rejects it, telling him it has to be her. Pitt understands and wishes her good luck. Jeanne thanks him, then realizes that she doesn't know this guy, asking how he knows Cereza. Baldur takes Bayonetta to space, where blue light glows from Baldur and red light glows from Bayonetta. Baldur is excited, telling Bayonetta they have the power of gods, the power to see her mother again. Baldur uses the power of the eyes to summon the goddess Jubileus, with her empty eye sockets matching up with the view of the blue and red light symbolizing the eyes. Jeanne uses one of her demons to fly up to the sky, wielding the red stone. She tries desperately to reach them. In space above the earth, Jubileus has an all-blue right eye and an all-red left eye, revealing Baldur and a passed-out Bayonetta in each eye. Jubileus holds out her hands, and in the light realm, it's revealed that balance starts to get thrown off a lot in her universe. Jeanne makes it to space, trying to reach Jubileus. It shows Inferno and Paradiso starting to glitch out, and the angels and demons start freaking out over it. Jeanne makes it to Jubileus' massive body and desperately runs up it, summoning her demonic motorcycle to ride up there. Inferno and Paradiso continue glitching, and panic starts setting in as both angels and demons start seeing each other and are afraid of each other. Jeanne eventually makes it to the red left eye and starts banging on it, trying to wake up Bayonetta. Jeanne yells at Bayonetta, telling her that she's an Umbran witch, that she's overjoyed to have had a friend like her, and that she's glad that she's here, symbolizing the fact that no one else in her universe is. She begs Bayonetta to not let anyone decide for her if she's a threat to the balance of the universe. She tells her to create her own existence. Bayonetta winces in the eye, hearing Jeanne, but it's not enough. Jeanne then takes the red stone and jams it into the left eye, straining as she tries to get it to Bayonetta. Jubileus roars in pain and halts the recreation of balance as Baldur tries to figure out what happened. Jeanne strains and screams as she tries to force the stone to get to Bayonetta, and as soon as the red stone touches Bayonetta, she wakes up. The red in Jubileus' left eye bursts out as if it's blood, and Bayonetta emerges from the eye, turning to face Jubileus. Emotionless and using the true power of the left eye, Bayonetta summons Queen Sheba, the Queen of Inferno. Baldur sees what's happening and is stunned. He grows rageful and commands Jubileus to destroy Sheba. Jubileus throws a right hook, but Queen Sheba catches her fist, snapping her wrist and making Jubileus shriek in pain more. Jubileus tries to launch her other fist at Sheba, but Sheba easily dodges, hitting Jubileus with 2 jabs to the chest and an uppercut to the face. Sheba catches Jubileus by the throat and reaches her fingers into Jubileus' right eye, trying to yank Baldur out as if she's gouging out her right eye. Jubileus continues shrieking as blue liquid gushes out like blood, and eventually Sheba yanks Baldur out, revealing Baldur in Sheba's massive hand. Bayonetta, controlling Sheba, shoves Jubileus back and uses her power to seal Jubileus back to her imprisonment, stopping the merging of each realm. Baldur sees this, crying out no. He sees Bayonetta levitating over him with glowing red eyes. He looks at her in rage and tells her now no one will ever accept her. Sheba promptly and effortlessly flings Baldur back to the earth. Baldur, flying back to the earth at practically the speed of sound, eventually crashes through multiple mountains, landing at the base of the mountain Fimbulventur in Noatun. He didn't crash through that mountain, but other mountains, with the crash being visible across the whole city. Bayonetta and Jeanne, having retracted Sheba, land on the base of the mountain. Bayonetta steps up, walking towards her immobilized father. Baldur begins weeping, asking her how she couldn't have wanted salvation. Her destiny could have been better even as an Umbran witch. Bayonetta asks if he really thinks that sages and witches are confined to separate afterlives after they die, just because of where they come from. She tells him it's your actions that define your destiny, and a good friend once said that there are good and bad people everywhere, all over the world, and goodness and flaws exist within every living being. Baldur scowls, asking when did she become such an angel. Bayonetta says, "Oh, father, do I look like an angel to you?" She says this as red appears in her eyes again, and her body starts merging with Madame Butterfly. Bayonetta tells her father only one thing awaits him now. Baldur turns back, seeing hellfire form behind him. He gasps and says, "No, why are you doing this?" Bayonetta smiles while still staring wildly at him, and says, "Because you decided to fuck with a witch." Baldur grows terrified as he tries to limply crawl away backwards. He calls to Jubileus to help him, for God to help him, when all of a sudden a long dark blade impales him right through the heart and he screams in pain. Malvolado is the one who stabbed him, and it whispers to Baldur saying, "Oh, I thought you were God." Several demons emerge from the hellfire and start grabbing Baldur as Baldur continues screaming and trying to fight back. Malvolado continues speaking to him, telling him not to be scared, as nothing ever awaits the wicked except the vengeful fury of hellfire. Baldur freezes, remembering what he told the woman during the Salem witch trials, and it's revealed that Malvolado was the woman from the beginning, and Malvolado thanks Baldur for keeping his promise that she would have revenge. Baldur begs for his life when he looks to the sky, seeing a glimpse of the heavens and seeing Rosa there looking down at him, utterly terrified and proven wrong. Baldur tries desperately to tell Cereza he loves her. Bayonetta watches all this happen without saying a word, and doesn't respond to her father as he gets dragged to Inferno. It's over. as Jeanne and Bayonetta collect themselves as they've had a lot to process. Rodin and Pitt emerge from a portal from Vigrid, and the four of them come together as they reunite. At a later time, Pitt returns to the Light Realm, being summoned by the Council. He reunites with Palutena, where he expects to hear that after this council meeting, he'll be banished from the Light Realm. Palutena can't contain her excitement, and says the news might be better than he thinks. The scene moves to Pitt at the council meeting where he finds out that Bayonetta's universe has perfect balance. The news amazes him, and Naga, the one now leading the council, tells Pitt that because they were blinded to the possibility that there was still a Lumen Sage out there that wanted to change the balance of Cereza's universe, notice how they're now calling her Cereza instead of the witch, they almost let it be destroyed. Naga thanks Pitt for stepping up to do the right thing, even risking banishment to do so, and Pitt's courage inspired all the Light representatives to believe in that as well again, not just maintaining order. Pitt smiles but asks where Zanza is. Naga finishes her sentence. Everyone but Zanza. He'll be gone from the Light Realm for a long time, most likely. Naga says, besides, it would be best if Pitt were the one to break the news to Cereza anyway. Child Cereza is taken to her home in Vigrid 500 years ago, and Bayonetta is revealed to be there. Bayonetta looks at her and hugs her, saying goodbye. Cereza asks where she's going, and Bayonetta tells her she belongs here. In her time. There's plenty of it for her. Cereza is sad and says, Mommy, she doesn't want her to go. Bayonetta smiles sweetly and says she's flattered that throughout their time together, she's been referred to as her mom. But Bayonetta reveals to Cereza that they're the same person, and that Cereza grows up to be strong and fearless all on her own. Bayonetta thanks Cereza for helping her to see the good in people again. She sees that Cereza is still holding her Cheshire doll, and Bayonetta tells Cereza to take good care of Cheshire. Now go to bed because this was all a dream. Cereza laughs, saying, No, it wasn't. Bayonetta laughs too, saying, yes it was, now go to sleep. Bayonetta glows white and vanishes the same way Cereza did, and Rosa enters Cereza's room, asking who she was talking to. Cereza still smiles, saying she was just talking to herself. Bayonetta thinks about all of this, something she had done after Baldur's defeat, as she sits at an outdoor diner table with Jeanne. Bayonetta asks Jeanne what she's going to do now, and Jeanne says she's always wanted to be a teacher. Bayonetta scoffs and says that's lame, and Jeanne says right, because her plans will be much more exciting. Bayonetta says, well, at least Jeanne knows what she wants to do. She herself doesn't know yet. She's just hoping the Light Realm will forget about her. Jeanne says looks like that's not happening, gesturing to Pitt standing on the other side of the diner, and Jeanne says she'll leave them alone. Pitt and Bayonetta reunite with each other, and Pitt explains to Bayonetta what the Light Realm told him. Bayonetta is amazed that this universe is perfectly balanced now, even with her living here, and asks are they sure they counted everyone correctly. Pitt chuckles and tells her it's because Jeanne gave her the true power of the left eye, wiping out every last trace of Lumen Sage out of her DNA. Bayonetta says so that means. Pitt finishes by saying that she is a full-blooded Umbran witch now. Bayonetta is surprised to hear this, and Pitt says there's something else they have to do though. Pitt and Bayonetta show up to the Redgrave's house, and Pitt knocks on the door. Luca's grandfather opens the door, with Pitt asking if they can speak with Luca. Luca appears and is happy to see Pitt. Pitt tells him they found out what happened to his father, and that they're both here to tell him. Pitt reveals Bayonetta behind him, and Luca grows fearful, but Bayonetta assures him it's alright and they're not going to hurt him. Luca hears them out, and Pitt tells Luca it was a man named Baldur that killed his father, that he was looking for Bayonetta. Bayonetta tells Luca that it's okay though because they stopped Baldur and put an end to him. He wanted to do something very bad that would fuck over everything, but they stopped that from happening. Pitt looks at Bayonetta appalled by her word choice. Pitt starts arguing with Bayonetta, but Luca says it's okay. They don't realize how much that means to him, that they did that for him. Bayonetta talks to him again, saying that his father must have been a great man, and she knows that he'll grow up to become an even better man if he continues to pursue justice the way he does. Bayonetta sees Luca's cat doll and says she likes his doll, and that she's going to call him Cheshire. Luca is confused, saying, no, she's not. Bayonetta says, yeah, she will, Cheshire. Luca continues protesting, and Bayonetta, laughing, tells him he's got to grow out of that nickname before she doesn't call him that anymore. Bayonetta and Pitt walk together on the sidewalk, and Bayonetta makes sure she's all good with the Light Realm and balance and stuff. Pitt says, yeah, pretty much. Bayonetta realizes something and says that she needs to tell Pitt something. Pitt asks what, and Bayonetta tells him throughout this whole time that Pitt's been here, she didn't hear him drop one F-bomb. Pitt looks at her like she's crazy and says no, he's not going to do that. Bayonetta says, come on, she refuses to believe that someone could be so innocent even after being around her. And Pitt says he's been around a lot longer than she thinks, and that he's been around much worse. Bayonetta says no, he hasn't, and Pitt agrees. Bayonetta playfully jabs him, saying that she'll let him have one favor, anything he wants if he says it. Pitt says she's crazy. Any favor? She says yeah, whether it's today, tomorrow, or 20 years from now. Anything he needs, she just needs to hear him say it. Pitt scoffs, asking if she really thinks he'd wait that long for someone like her. Bayonetta messes with him, jokingly calling him a pervert, and Pitt goes bright red, assuring her he didn't mean it like that. Bayonetta says it's alright, she's fucking with him. Pitt quietly mutters, oh my god, again, and Bayonetta looks at him in anticipation. Pitt eventually gives up and says, Fuck. And with that, epilogue. Now everyone, it is time for the post-credit scene. This is a shorter one, but very impactful, because this post-credit scene occurs 20 years later, which is now the present day of the NCU timeline. So 20 years later, in the present day, Bayonetta uses her true left eye power to create a dark portal to transport to the Dark Realm. Her appearance is her Bayonetta 2 appearance, and now has shorter, spiky hair. She pulls out the yin and yang device Pitt showed her 20 years ago, and realizes that the symbol is wrong, that both the white and black dots sit on the border and overlap and merge with each other. She looks panicked and races over to a destination she's searching for in the Dark Realm. She makes it there and freezes when she sees the chains of darkness holding nothing, previously holding Galeem. Panicked, she quietly says it's too late, and she creates another portal of darkness, leading her to the source of the imbalance. She ends up on the edge of a floating island above an ocean, surrounded by countless amounts of debris, once being some kind of base. She turns around and sees Darkleem, the fused being of Darkin and Galeem harnessing the 4 subspace particles. She instinctively gets her pistols out as she looks at him with deep conviction as Darkleem plunges his spear into the ground, with it cutting off right at that moment. And that, everyone, is the story of the NCU version of Bayonetta. Again, ever since Bayonetta's been introduced in the NCU in World of Light and Darkness Part 2, which is going to be the movie after this, I've been interested in her story, and I wanted to explain the reasoning behind Pitt and Bayonetta seeming to know each other in Smash Bros. World of Light and Darkness Part 2, while also trying to connect her story the best I could with the timeline, while also trying to remain accurate to the game. I know there are several elements that I added in here, especially with Luca not being the one to journey with Bayonetta this story, but still having him in here as a driving force behind Pitt being here, connecting him to Bayonetta's story and eventually becoming friends with her. I still don't know 100% sure if I'm going to keep this going, but at the very least, ever since I've been initially writing the NCU last year, I wanted to see if there was like a way I could make her have a more important role, like even so much as give her own movie, even if that was not something I had originally planned. Even though this is more of like a backstory, not like a filler movie, I still wanted to have solid development for both Bayonetta and Pitt, with her not start off as like this cold person, but be kind of a bitter person because of how bad she's been treated by everyone in her universe because she's an imbalance. I wanted her to start seeing the good in people, while Pitt, who believed that the light can do no wrong and the darkness can only do evil, he gets a new perspective in this movie, and he and Bayonetta kind of teach each other those kinds of lessons, which also adds to the balance element in this movie. So I wanted Bayonetta to grow more sympathetic and compassionate, and I wanted Pitt to have more of a realism on this movie, even being as innocent as he is. Well, I guess not anymore now that he dropped his first F-bomb. So everyone, that is it for this video. Thank you all for tuning in, and that'll do it for me today. So everyone, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you guys hit the like button normally and subscribe to join the herd. Become a VIP herd member today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!